Okay, dokie. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Hope everyone is doing fantastic today. I'm actually doing this stream very unexpectedly because I wasn't planning on doing it. But today's been a weird day overall. It's been a snowstorm here in Maine, and it's been pretty heavy. Like we have easily over a foot and a half of snow already. Easily over half a foot in snow. And I had to work today, and I went to work, and my thought was like, okay, I'm gonna get out at around 10 o'clock, 10:30. I'm gonna head home in the really deep snow, and I figured we weren't gonna have very many customers where I worked. But you know, still do your due diligence, still go to work, still get paid. I get there, and my managers were already talking about closing early. I was like, no. It took me an hour to drive here in this super deep ass snow. Please don't close. I want to earn my money. I want this trip to have been worth it. I nearly had 2 head-on collisions, in fact, on the way to work today. It's that bad. Like, the snow is just, whew. And my managers ended up closing up early. I got 2.5, 3 hours of work. That's how much I barely made enough to make up gas money. I was so mad. But anyway, long story short, here we are. I have time this afternoon and enough energy to finish the Maulerfiend. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. By the way, you guys will notice this right here. This is not a decal. This is not some kind of sticker thing I put on here. Nope, this is hand painted. I hand painted that eyeball on there. I think it was recommended either last stream or the stream before last, but someone said, "Hey, do like an eyeball," and someone else chimed in, "Do the Sauron eye," which is very fitting because it's a World Eater's cornate Maulerfiend. So, indeed, I decided, you know what? Screw it. Makes perfect sense to me. So there's Corn's little eyeball poking out of the armor for the Maulerfiend. It took me a few minutes to do. I did the base coat of the red, then I moved in with a slight off red, like a really vibrant orange, then moved in with a bit more of a yellow, and then finally finished off with a dash of black, which I did actually have to recoat over a couple times. I don't know if you can even see that, but there's a little bit of a fade from the black to the yellow just around the edges. It's super subtle though, so I could barely see it, and my eyeballs like looking right at it. And of course, the little glares are just dashes of white. So yeah, I did pretty good. I did pretty good on the eyeball. I do think. The other thing I did like off stream a little bit. It's harder to tell because the light's really strong here. But I applied a base coat of white in all the eye sockets, including of the eye socket of the Maulerfiend himself, and in his little energy vents down here. And then I used the technical color Tesseract Glow over that white to give it a green glow effect, and it worked. It's actually really good. It looks a lot better than if I had done the glow effect myself. Do like a base coat of a green and then do over it a little bit of a yellow green and then like a dash of like white highlights. It looks a lot better than I expected. So this might be an ongoing cheat sheet I do for green glows. Yo, Matthew Gordon, how you doing, man? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? How you doing? By the way, first question of the stream I have for the audience. Who here has seen the Black Templar lore video I did? The 40-minute one. I released it, I think, yesterday or the day before yesterday. And while I wait for answers to that question to come in, I think the first thing I'm going to do is continue working on the metallic bits here. Let me see if I can put that into focus. There we go. All right, we got one yep so far. That's good. That's good. I'd love to hear it. All right, let me mix back together my Iron Warriors steel. I guess it's just called Iron Warriors. Super thin. Oh no, I thinned out. too much. Way too much. Great. Hey, Undead. How you doing? What's up? Thoughts on Minecraft movie casting? You are an entirely movie-centric guy, aren't you? Every time you come in, man, it's always movie-related stuff. The Minecraft movie. I don't know. I haven't looked at the casting. I did hear about a little while back. I say a little while back. It's like a couple days ago. I did hear that they were doing one. Is it true that Jack Black? I think I could be totally wrong, but Jack Black is playing Steve. Jack Black is playing Steve. Oh, okay. Hey, Kaiju. Hello, you beautiful man. You. How you doing? You like the eyeball? He's staring at you. He's giving you he's... it's the I see you eye right there. I find it weird that Jack Black's playing Steve. Like, if it's an animated movie, I could totally see it. Like, you know, he's just doing the voice. But if it's live action, definitely, unless he's losing a lot of fucking weight and he loses, like, I don't know, he goes back in time and recruits his younger self. I don't know how he's gonna do it. He's a bit old to play that. Steve should be played by a pretty physically fit person. If they're doing live action, I'm assuming it's animated. If Jack Black is playing him, like it doesn't make sense otherwise. It's live action. You're fucking with me, right? I'm being punked. There's no way they're doing that in live action. Not with Jack Black. I'm sorry. It doesn't make. It would make far more sense for the Rock to play Steve in a live action film. And listen, I don't think the Rock would be the right choice either. But at least he's got the physicality I'd expect from, you know, a survivalist. Hey, Gilly guy, how you doing? Jack Black will act. Chris Pratt will voice. What? Can you elaborate what you mean by that? Because if anything, that just confused me more. Thought it was great. Awesome, love to hear it. Yeah, thing is, just before as I was getting home today, a friend of mine named Caboose, he's also a longtime subscriber of the channel, he messaged me and he said he loved it, but I got one thing wrong. At least he only listed one thing. And what he said I got wrong in the video was who called forth the last call protocol during the War of the Beast. And also how it went down. Now he was totally wrong about how it went down, because he said the last wall protocol wasn't called forth until after the War of Beast. Until after the Imperial Fist was reformed. The Imperial Fist chapter wasn't reformed from the remnants of its progenitor chapters until after the War of the Beast. The War of the Beast ended before they did that, so that made no sense. So he was totally wrong about that point, but he was kind of right that it wasn't Bohemond High Marshal Bohemond who called forth the last wall protocol. It was what are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about something other than movies. So off the bat, you're probably going to completely ghost out of it, but we're talking about the Warhammer 40k lore. And specifically the video I did on it, which was yesterday. If you go to the channel page, it should be the next video listed, my friend. But, yeah. So technically he was right. It wasn't Bohemond who called forth the last wall protocol. Who called it forth was actually, fuck, I always like say Crooner. It's not Crooner. Who called it forth was the last surviving member of the Imperial Fist chapter that had been had been annihilated after the Imperial Fists were completely wiped out. It was the last surviving member. He called it forth but he only was able to call it forth because Bohemond gathered up the other successor chapters of the Imperial Fists. So it was Bohemond who actually... I keep saying Boa, but I think it's Bohemond, and I'm just adding the Boa. But anyway. But Bohemond was the one who facilitated it. You know, he and his he and his Black Templars are the ones who, like, gathered everybody up, had a meeting, and basically hashed out the Last Wall Protocol happening. So, by all accounts, I still consider myself correct on that point. I still think I'm right. And I don't think I'm wrong to say that Bohemond called it. And technically, if we're getting really anal about terminology and stuff, Bohemond didn't actually say, hey, let's do the Last Wall Protocol. But he facilitated it. So, by all accounts, again, I can't remember his name. It's like Kruner, something with a K and like multiple O's. But the final surviving member of the Imperial Fist chapter, he was the one who actually verbally said, you know, let's do the Last Wall Protocol. But he wouldn't have been able to do it if Bohemond hadn't gathered everybody. So by all accounts, if Gruner had not been there or had not said that, Bohemond would have done it. Bohemond of all manners did all the setup for it. Why wouldn't he have called for it? So in my opinion, I'm not wrong. And I don't think I made a mistake necessarily by putting that in the video. I think that's still correct. It's just, again, anally speaking, was he the one who actually said the words, let Last Wall Protocol? No, he was not the one who said that, but he did everything to facilitate it. So, again, feel free to agree with Caboose on that one if you guys are like really anal about it, really technical about it. But as far as I'm concerned, I think I'm still correct. I don't know. That's me. I don't think I was wrong to have said that. But that again is me, and I am a very different person, I guess. I still can't believe the War of the Beast had the exact same battle happen 3 times. I was rereading a book by mistake. No, there was a lot of... The War of the Beast actually has a lot of problems by all accounts. I don't think it's a bad... Like, some people think it's a bad addition to the lore. I really didn't mind it. Like first of all, I love Black Templars, and Black Templars got a bit of a highlight through the War of the Beast, plus the Third War of Armageddon. Them and orcs seem to go together a lot, but I thought it was a pretty good addition to the lore overall. It just has a lot of, I want to say, like, overarching inconsistencies and also a bit of repetition. You are right about that. It's got a bit of repetition issues. If we could correct those, I think it'd be perfectly fine. You know, I think some people just don't like the additions because they felt it was like a weird like callback to the Imperium's history to add it. Because if I recall correctly, wasn't it added after Primaris were added? No, I think actually no, never mind. The War of the Beast I think was added to the lore before the Primaris. I'll have to double check like when they were written in. I did like the Gorka Morka chant scene. Should show up in the lore more. Alright. But the very last thing I'm painting on this guy, and I'm gonna do it after I glue him onto the base, is all of this. Because I have to keep gripping these to, you know, get a good handle and move them around. Here's a bit of a tricky one, because I'm going to try and get in there. That is a really awkward angle. Okay. Doesn't help that this is very uncomfortable to grip. Bohemond of Toronto. Yeah. But, you know, other than that little thing, I haven't heard anybody else, like, complain about any of, like, the points I made in the video. And again, I researched the video as I was writing the script and putting it together, so I'd like to think the video is 100% correct. Maybe I missed a couple points. I mean, I can't think of any off the top of my head, that's for sure. But, yeah. I'd say the video is 100% correct. And in line with the canon lore. So I'm very proud of it, and I put a lot of work into editing it. Although the hardest thing I did for that video is there's footage of it at the end of the video and towards the beginning, just after the title sequence. I went out into the forest near where I live. Oh shit! I hit some of the skin. No. God damn it. I went out to the forest near where I live and recorded myself by a fire with a greatsword. There was a lot of like moving parts to that, as you might assume, and it was very cold the day I did it, and I had to do it at night, so that it would be like a nighttime footage with like a fire. And to make sure I had plenty of fuel for the fire, I had to I had to forage for some wood. I had to get some wood together. I had to have some primer to light it, and I had to make sure it lit in freezing cold temperatures. And if you've ever tried to light a fire by hand, especially when it's cold out, you would know that it doesn't exactly want to work with you when it's cold out. When that wood is cold and, worst of all, moist, it takes a lot to get it to light. To the point where one might even argue it's near impossible to get it lit unless you're have some kind of burnable substance connected to it, like some kind of proper primer. So, yeah, but I recorded about 20 minutes of me being out there with a campfire, different poses and stuff, hanging out by the just for a shot of like a dramatic shot of me like getting ready to tell the story around the fire. I think it looks good, but in hindsight, I'm like, was that worth it? Probably not. Probably very few people gave a shit about that little addition to the video. It was a great listen while I was painting. Awesome. Cold plus damp wood equals not good time. No, it took me a while. It took me a while to get that fire to stay lit on its own devices. But it eventually did. It just fought me the entire time. Okay, so where did I nick it? I know I nicked the flesh. I mean, by all accounts, I don't... Well, that is visible to me, and I care enough to fix it, so... Where is my skin tone? Is that a little bit blue? Or is it just the lighting in my eyes? Probably just the lighting in my eyes. I don't know. It looks pretty pale, so I think we're good. Okay. Time to fix the mistake. I'm gonna have to go back over that with some Rycliffe plus shade later. It'll look a little patchy, but oh, it's my cat. I was like, what the hell is that sound? All right. You know, yeah, it's gonna look a little bit weird for now. But when I go back over that with Rycliffe plus shade, it'll almost look like a birthmark, so I think it'll be fine. I also nicked part of the armor there, so that I also have to get. Make sure to leave a like on the stream if you guys are enjoying and having fun with the conversation. Oh, Jack Black. I'm trying to, like, that's also kind of sticking in my head. Like, Jack Black playing Steve in Minecraft. Like, does anyone want to steel man that choice in the comments? Because I feel like that's a universal bad move. It's like, who should play this outdoor survivalist in a wasteland that's trying to kill him? And he's just, like, harvesting everything around him to survive, you know? Who wants to play that character? You know that overweight... No offense, Jack Black. I like Jack Black as an actor, and he's played a lot of my favorite characters. But still, the overweight, Like, isn't he over 50? He's in his 40s or 50s. Like, guy from the old rock, School of Rock. Like, I feel like whoever did the casting should be fired. So you totally missed what movie we're making, aren't you? That was a very odd choice, I think. But again, if anyone wants to steel man the choice, like Wyatt would make sense. Feel free. I don't think it makes sense at all. Okay, so I've already got the knuckle. Should I leave? I don't know. I'll ask you guys this, but should I leave the claws, Runelord Brass, or should I go over that with like Lead Belcher, Iron Hand Steel, or Iron Warriors? Because I feel like that looks pretty good as Runelord Brass, but it also kind of like it's not as obvious in this lighting, but there's a slight clash with the edges of the flesh tone, so I'm not sure. Questions. I think I'm gonna do the teeth. I do Iron Hand Steel. So I shake it up enough. Yeah, because I don't want the teeth to be Runelord Brass, because I think that looks weird for everything else around it to be Runelord, and also it be Runelord. Oh, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, Warhammer Old World is supposed to release tomorrow, isn't it? It might be today for some of you. It's 9:21 p.m. here where I'm at. So in like 3 hours, less than 3 hours, it'll be Monday. Am I off by a day or two, or is Warhammer Old World not supposed, at least not necessarily launch, but pre-order start tomorrow, don't they? I could be totally wrong by the day, but I thought I heard it was tomorrow. The pre-orders were yesterday. Oh, okay, but it hit shelves on the 20th. Gotcha. I mean, I don't know how well it's gonna sell. I guess that'll be the next topic for conversation. What do you guys think about Warhammer Old World? Do you think it's going to launch to success, or do you guys think it's gonna flop? Or somewhere in between, you know? Elaborate on your predictions in the chat, and I'll give you mine after I see a few other people's. Cause I'm sad my Vamps won't get support for quite a while. Ah, okay. Yeah, on launch it's supposed to be Bretonia and Tomb Kings, and then I don't know what the roadmap looks like. I don't even know if they have one, but I'm assuming the roadmap is a ways off. Now to get the teeth. Gonna struggle like Horus Heresy. Oh yeah, like that. Oh yeah, definitely. That is a guarantee. The real question though comes down is, will it be like an actual success though? Struggle, guarantee, but long term, will it be a success story? Personally, I think the answer is no. I feel like they kind of sunk that boat when they released Age of Sigmar. Like when they completely killed off the setting and released Age of Sigmar and have now established the end times as canon. As far as I know, Old World is not undoing that part. It's just basically it's like Vanilla WoW, right? Like Vanilla WoW didn't undo everything that came after it. It's just, hey, you can go back and play this thing now, and we're supporting like official capacity for it. but it's just a dip back into nostalgia. It's not like, hey, going forward, this universe will continue to develop and continue to move in the direction it was set to back then, and we're just skipping end times or just saying end times didn't happen. As far as I know, they're not doing that. They're just, you know, hey, you want to go back to the old system, here's the old system, but if you're looking for future development, if you're looking at things to progress, then you'll have to go and play Age of Sigmar. That's my understanding. As far as I know, they're not developing it. I didn't have the money to order anything, but they sold out very fast. Yeah, but that's probably scalpers, to be honest. Not to like shoot anyone's like enthusiasm in the kneecaps, but let's be honest, that's probably scalpers. Like a lot of scalpers are probably jumping on this, to be honest. For me, like, the real metric to tell me how successful it's going to be is if I see, like, at hobby stores, this stuff selling out. And, like, at hobby stores, seeing people play it. That's the big one. Like, selling out the model kits and stuff, that's one thing. But seeing people play it on benches, on tables, at the hobby store, and discussing the lore, discussing the setting, that's going to be the real telltale, like, is this going to be successful or not? For me. Like, for other people, the metric is just, like, raw sales of model kits and stuff. For me, it's definitely going to be, is this being played right now? Horus Heresy, at the very least, is being played in my area. It's not being played as much as 40k is, but it's being played, you know, pretty regularly in my area. More so than Age of Sigmar is, anyway. Trying to be really easy with this because I don't want to nick the crannies. Right, there we go. Look at those pearly... I almost said pearly whites, but it's not necessarily white. Scalpers for GW exist because GW doesn't actually know what a pre-order is supposed to be. Well, the thing is, if you're thinking of pre-orders because that they have to be made to order pre-orders, I don't think that's necessarily true. Because pre-orders aren't inherently made to order. Like, for a lot of companies, in fact, pre-orders are usually finite. It's like, okay, we have a set number of these we're producing. And, you know, we're only going to produce a certain amount because we don't know if they're going to be a profitable sale. So we're not going to do... some would say, like, oh, but made to order makes more sense in that regard. And technically, yes, it does. But if you also... But if it's made to order, you can't create scarcity. And scarcity is what makes things sell because of FOMO. It's a marketing technique. So that's why GW doesn't do made to order. Because if they did made to order, there would never be scarcity, and therefore there'd never be FOMO, and therefore people wouldn't buy things at the exorbitant prices as much. Because they'd be like, okay, I'll save up, or they'll just be like, oh, I'll wait for a sale. It's made to order. It can come out whenever I want it to. That's why GW and lots of companies don't do make to order pre-orders or make to order period. Is because if you don't have that scarcity, you don't have that demand, and you don't have FOMO to feed off of people. So that's why GW makes a finite amount and then pre-order sales that, or sales in batches. Like they do batches as opposed to pre-order or made to as opposed to made to order sales. To shed a little bit of light on that, you know. Kings of War, believe it or not, is getting popular in your area. What is Kings of War? Because I can't say if that surprised me or not, because I don't know what that is. Off the top of my head, anyway. I'm wondering if I should fix part of that eye. I don't know, one of those eye white highlights is not making me very happy right now. Hello, Shadow Fox. How you doing? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? You know, it's a very streamlined fantasy game like Warhammer, but way simpler, run by Mantic Games. That was new. I am definitely not familiar with that. I might look it up sometime. Definitely don't want to get into it right now. I have too many things I got to do for the current hobbies I have. But maybe sometime check it out. I'll tell you this, like, how cheap is it? And does it have model kits like GW does, or does it do, like, pre-built, pre-painted stuff? So, fix that up. Alright, so we've done the teeth, which... let me reduce the glare from my light here a little bit. To kind of help accentuate that a little bit. Yeah. Kind of did. Okay. It's already hit that with the iron hands. Oh, I know what I want to grab next. Alright, this is where we gotta get a little bit technical. Actually, I'm surprised I did that in one go. Detail painting is... This is honestly where painting actually almost gets stressful for me. I love painting, like, minis overall, don't get me wrong. But this is probably where it gets the most stressful, is once you've painted so much already. And now you have to paint details around what you've already painted. And you're just like, Pierce kind of shared a meme on our Discord where it's like Gollum, like, doing the face where he's trying to, like, take the ring from Frodo, and he's like... Right? But it's like, it's that face, but then it shows the image below it, and it's like this, trying to paint this little dot on an eyeball for a space ring. Like, relatable. That's like, this is the section of the painting process where I'm like that. Like, I feel like my face is like that somewhat. But my face, I think, actually is quite unexpressionless when I do it, because I'm so serious. I don't know. I probably should start watching my streams back when I do small detail painting and be like, what does my face look like? Do I look like I want to murder a bitch? Trying not to nick the flesh. I make faces when I draw, especially when doing monsters. Like... How do you know someone's an artist? When you look over a cubicle and you see their face like this and they're not doing something untoward. They're just trying to draw. They're trying to paint. The eye in the back looks great. Oh, yeah. Trying to make the eye, the glare of the light not hit it. But yeah, thank you. I worked, that's hand painted, by the way. That took me a little less amount of time, to be honest, than I thought it would. But probably for a normal person, they'd be like, why didn't you just stop? It's like, I can't. It doesn't look right yet. Yeah, I think the eye looks great. Toot my own horn a little bit. I am very proud of it. It came out pretty damn good. I was worried when working on it, but I'm glad the worry was for no reason. Because I wasn't sure it was going to look good as I was painting it. I'm doing the fade between the red and the orange and the yellow, and I'm like, I don't know if this is going to look right. But lo and behold, it looked pretty damn good. It's one of those times where you should have more confidence in yourself. Wondering if I want to do all that. I think I'm going to leave those Room Lord brass. I think I'm leaving a lot of the shit. I might change that, though. Let's just add a little bit of variety. Make this Iron Hand steel. So much of it's already Rune Lord. I feel like adding a little bit of variety in the middle will do it some good. Of course, it's so thin, it still looks like Rune Lord brass. That's why we add a little bit more onto the paint palette, so we can do a more thick job. Well, damn, that's really great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm also pretty proud of the glow effects on the eye, and also the I'm not sure what these are supposed to be. I guess like vent ports on the Maulerfiend, but yeah, pretty proud of those. Although, to be fair, that was really easy, because all I had to do was base coat it white, and then I used Tesseract Glow over it. And that's it. Like, that's all you gotta do to make that green glow effect. You can do it by hand and make it look even cooler, but I think it came out pretty damn good for all I had to do. You know, it's pretty good glow effect. Hey, Zoid. Slightly more thorough job on that horn. I'm gonna add some blood effects on it anyway, so part of this is gonna be obscured. Still worth it. Now, I'll say this for Citadel and GW, their metallics are the best. Just got notified of the stream. Yeah, that sounds like YouTube. Like, hey, let's send out notifications now he's been streaming for like 20 minutes. Actually, we've been going for a half hour already. Really? Half hour? Time flies. Time flies when you do something you actually enjoy. When I'm at work, I look at the clock 1 minute and I'm like, alright, it's this time. It's like 6 o'clock. It's like, okay. And then I do some work, and I'm like, all right, I've done a lot of work. It's been at least like another 2 hours, right? Check the clock, it's been 5 minutes. You're like, no, how's that possible? Yeah, that's the life. Oh, do I want to grab? Do I? That's gonna be a huge pain in the ass. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just kind of griping and debating about all the little metal bits on the internal mechanisms that I don't really want to fuck with too much. But kind of have to. Don't nick the chassis, don't nick the chassis, don't nick the chassis, don't nick the chassis. Ah! Sad thing is painting the undercarriage part is kind of pointless, considering once I put it on the base, I think a lot of the undercarriage stuff is not going to be visible. But I'll know it's there, so kind of have to do it still. I swear surgery is less stressful. That's obviously a joke. If someone's out there as a doctor and watches this and goes, actually, you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm joking. Fuck off. Sure, surgery is quite stressful. Well, that does sound like a meme, though, doesn't it? It's like, you think surgery is stressful? Try trying to paint a detailed iris and eyeball and pupil onto a miniature character this fucking big. Call me tomorrow. See how you do. I'm a dork, sorry. We hates the cardio. For painting Minotaur's chapter the third time, I was doing the Nihilak. I fucked it up. Nihilak Oxide technical paint. The way the GW videos segues it tore the layers of paint down on the primer layer. Or to the primer layer. Oh, okay. So I put the oxide as the second layer. Primer first layer, Warplock bronze. Probably a good choice. Warplock is actually... I don't know how I feel about Warplock. It's because when I paint Warplock, I feel like you shouldn't do washes over Warplock bronze. Because every time I've used it and then put a wash over it, all that it ends up like it completely fades out the metallic effect for me, and I don't know, it just looks off to me. Like when you apply a wash over Warplock, I could be extremely like anal about that though. Okay, so I think I got the overall joints there. I nicked the flesh again. I don't know if I can even get my brush in there to fix that though. It's literally like right there. And if I try to get my brush there, I'm definitely gonna nick the trim there. Fuck. Will I notice that enough for it to bother? Yes, I will. I can't lie to myself. Yes, I will. Alright. This is where I wish I had my glasses. Actually, hold on. I think I do have my glasses. I keep forgetting I put them in my desk. Okay. You guys are about to see a different side to me. Yes, they're red before anyone comments. That wasn't my choice. That's what they gave me. Okay. Hey Havoc, welcome to the stream. How you doing, you wonderful human being? By the way, we got 9 people watching, but only 3 likes. I feel like a crime is being committed. Like the stream, support. I always appreciate that. Thank you. Asmogan, watched your Templar vid today. It was good stuff. I'm glad you liked it. I think I responded to your comment. If I didn't, I apologize. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad anybody who checks it out. If you like it, let me know. Leave a comment. If anyone has any problems with it as well, also leave a comment. That, believe it or not, that does help. Like, as much as I joked about it a little bit earlier when Caboose messaged me and said, like, hey, you got something wrong. You know, like, that doesn't irk me at all. Like, I do appreciate criticism if I do make a mistake. Obviously, with text chat, it's sometimes hard to tell, but if I ever, like, respond to something like that, though, and, like, you leave a message thinking you've caught, like, a mistake, and you're like, hey, by the way, you made a mistake here, but if I respond, no, I'm correct, don't ever, like, read that and assume my tone is, actually, I'm correct. Like, my intended tone every time I say something like that in, like, a text chat or comment, the tone is always intended to be, you know, it's more passive. It's more like, no, I'm correct. It's more speaking matter of fact. I know I tend to, you know, with text chat, it's hard to tell tone. So just know, if you get a comment like that ever, it's not aggressive at all. For me, it's literally just stating, no, I'm right. But it's not meant to be pompous, arrogant, or pointed, ever. So yeah, when my buddy Caboose, like, I just, you know, I showed him, you know, my sources. I showed him, you know, where I was getting the information. And the information did support part, like I said earlier, part of what he said, but it didn't mean I was wrong, necessarily. It just meant that the exact details I said weren't 100% correct. It was, like, the gist was correct, what I said was correct, just not, like, anally speaking, was it, like, point on. But overall it was. So it's one of those things where, yeah, you got to be a little anal to say it's wrong, necessarily. Okay, welcome to the stream. How you doing? Neutral tone, the one that people always misread is passive aggressive. Yeah, I tend to have that mistake happen a lot with my responses to things. I think a lot of people read my text comments and think like, oh, okay, he's being aggressive with me, or he's like starting something. I really don't intend it that way. So, when I'm aggressive, I usually throw swear words in there, and not always. Even then, sometimes it might just be banting. But sometimes I'll throw in, like, you know, if I'm intending aggression, it's usually very obvious. Like, there's no needing to read into it at all. I almost say it pretty much. But most of the time, like, if I'm just, like, confident about something, or I'm, like, very strict on something, I'll just say, no, I'm right, or no, this is how this is, or this is how this is, you're incorrect. But it's never intended to be like, you know, fuck you, I'm right. It's not, like, I think people sometimes read that into that too much, and I've had to cool people's jets before. And a good example of that would be, where would be a good spot? Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, that's good. All right. A good example would be on, ironically, the first long-form lore video I did, not the Black Templar one, which is the second. The first one is the Necron video I did, the War in Heaven lore video. In that video, in the comment section, someone like Caboose tried to do to me in DMs said, like the video, but you got this wrong. And what they told me was, it's not Eldari, it's Eldar. Because I said Eldari in the video. Because I was referring to, you know, the Eldar way back when, right after the old ones created them in their race to fight the Necrons in the Catan, and I referred to them as the Eldari. Now, the Eldari as a term is correct. It is in the lore. It is what the ancient Eldar were called. And by all accounts, you can still call them that now, and it's not incorrect. They haven't devolved like the Orcs have, because if you were to call the Orcs in modern 40k Krorks, that's just wrong. Like, they're not Krorks anymore. Like, they have definitely devolved to the point where they are noticeably different. Additionally, with the Necrons, you wouldn't call a Necron tier because, well, just like the Orcs, there's been a major, you know, biological shift. They are very distinctly not what they once were. So that wouldn't make sense. But the Eldar, by all accounts, biologically speaking, they're still the same, roughly, as they were way back when. Like, the only thing that's faulted with them is, like, the number of them, and that's not an infertility issue. That's a souls getting eaten like popcorn by Slanesh. Well, actually, it's not quite like that. Eldari is, and it's like, it's spelled, if I'm not mistaken, Eldari. Like, that's Eldari, and then there's Eldar, and both apply in the sense of singular and plural. Like, Eldar is singular, Eldar is also plural. Likewise with Eldari. Like, you have in Eldari, singular, and then you have the Eldari, which is plural. Both are... The difference is, solely speaking, it's like an ancient nickname. Or like an alternative way to say Eldar. Like, they mean the exact same thing. They are the exact same name. They're just two different pronunciations. Like, what's a good example? It's like tomato. It's literally like tomato and tomato. Like, when you think about it. Like, it's same word, two pronunciations. That's more or less the difference between Eldar and Eldari. Like, that's it. I would say the only distinction between the terms really is you would use Eldar to refer to the Craftworld Eldar, and the Drukhari to refer to like the Dark Elves and Kamarog and stuff like that. And then you'd use Eldari to refer to like the overarching race, right? Like that would include the Drukhari, the Eldar, and the Harlequins. Like that would include everybody as Eldari. And Eldar is like you'd use that to refer to the Craftworld Eldar, with meaning leaving out the Craftworld part for succinction. And, you know, Drukhari / Dark Elves for them, and the Harlequins for them. That's the only real distinction between the terminologies. But by all accounts, Eldari is still correct. So that's a good example of like these little anal tidbits that people have that they think is a gotcha. They're like, hey, by the way, you got this wrong. No, I got it right. You're not necessarily wrong either. Like, both are terms. The thing is, you're denying another term that does exist in the lore as existing weirdly to try and say I'm wrong about something. And here's the thing: if someone points out in the comments and they say you're wrong about this, and I check what it is, and I am, I will by all accounts say like, oh yeah, I fucked that up, my bad, and I might even make a pinned comment saying I screwed this up. But you know, like I said, I will stand by when I'm not wrong about something. And you know, like it feels weird to me that sometimes people feel like they got a gotcha though. Almost with that stuff. I don't know. It's weird to me. It's weird. But I guess that's the nature of like when you make stuff that other people are passionate about and they have very much a strict like idea of it in their head, that if you deviate from that like you like they see that as a true and entire mistake, even if that deviation you have is also correct overall. That's my best guess of why people do that, but same time, some people are just really autistic. But it's cool. The thing is, I still like those comments. Like, I don't hate the guy on on the War in Heaven video. I don't hate that guy who made that comment. You know, I corrected him. I told him no, both terms are they're both correct. You know, Caboose, of course, he's my friend. Like, as much as he like went in the comment, went in my DMs and told me I was wrong about it. You know, he wasn't correct to say I was wrong about it, but in my opinion, technically on a very anal level, he was correct. But again, I've already kind of addressed about that, why I think, you know, it's not right to say I'm wrong about it. But regardless, you know, it happens a little too often. When you are smooching too much, you own headcanon. Oh, smooching. Okay, I read that and I was like, what the heck is smooching? Smooching. When you're yeah. Some people really stick really close to their headcanon and sometimes forget that the headcanon isn't a canon. And don't get me wrong, I get why sometimes you would want to be strict with that, because there are some things that are added to the lore that I won't acknowledge very much. But if I'm having a conversation with another person about the lore, I don't feel like I'll tell someone like, hey, you're not correct if they don't adhere to my headcanon. I would just simply say I don't like recognize that. But I understand why you make this point or make this like comment about this thing that relates to the lore. With like that thing, I may not find personally, I may not personally acknowledge it, but I can't deny its existence, and therefore I can't tell you you're wrong for how you bring that point up. You know, that's kind of I think that happens in 40k in particular a lot more than other hobbies, is because the lore is so shifty and so many authors completely just put up a giant middle finger to the lore, to like the overarching lore, and just do whatever the fuck they want. So I do tend to think that happens with this community in particular a lot more than other communities. Avic says, no gotchas for me, but I also enjoy mocking GW for pushing their copyright-friendly names, like the random apostrophe and ow. Ow. Oh, for the Tau. Okay. I don't know. Did they do that for copyright for that? I guess it was like Tao Buddhism and stuff like that. But it's also spelled different, isn't it? Because isn't it T-A-O? Like, whereas Tau for 40k is T-A-U. You know? I don't know. I might be being the anal one now. Is that dry? I don't know what it is about, like, being down here, but I guess the air is just, like, sucking moisture and everything. Crap, what was that? That was Iron Warriors. Yeah. Sorry, I thought I noticed something about the eye, but on the camera, but now that I look at it, no, I think it's fine. One thing I'll tell you I definitely got to fix off the bat. We'll get to it, but right there, be a little hard to see. But I nicked the flesh tone onto the Rune Lord here. I'm actually going to go around this, and for the base here, that's going to be either Lead Belcher or Iron Warriors. So is this part minus its crown, and then also minus this one's crown. It kind of repeat the process over here as well. So what's being left Rune Lord brass on like the vents is the tops, like the caps. And also like this whole thing is going to be left Rune Lord. Some authors put middle finger up the lore. See CS Gato. Yeah. Lord of the Rings fans, consult the Silmarillion. Yeah, because the Silmarillion, the Bible. At least you guys have a lore Bible, right? Like, I kind of envy the 40k community. Sorry, I'm in the 40k community. I envy the Lord of the Rings community as a member of the 40k community because you guys literally have a lore Bible. Like, you have the Silmarillion, and plus the original books. And on top of it, you only have one author. But meanwhile, here we're kind of like slumming it here in 40k in terms of writing because we have like, what was the last count? The last count I saw was 57 writers for Black Library. Isn't it bigger than that now? Pretty sure, like, just short of 10th edition, didn't they hire, like, a handful more writers? Or am I going crazy? I know the last count I saw was 57, so there's at least 57 writers for Black Library. All for the same shit. And there's no lore Bible. Like, there is no universal encyclopedia that is 100% like, this is the thing, it can't be deviated from this, and all writers have to follow this. I wish that was a thing in our community. And it's not. And that's why idiots, like, tourists come in and say shit like the Templin Institute, where it's like, oh, there is no canon, because, like, this thing doesn't coincide with this thing. It's like, yes, but orcs exist exist and don't exist magically in some books. No, they canon still exists in 40k. There is a skeleton for the lore that is concrete and immovable. Like, the Horus Heresy happened. That's canon. Orcs exist. That's canon. The Imperium exists. That's canon. Krieg. That's canon. There is lots of things that are canon and are not deniable in any or contradicted in any book. Unfortunately, it's the finite stuff that is contradicted, that is broken, that is inconsistent, and a lot of like these tourists that come in who say shit like, "Oh, there is no canon." That's what they latch onto so fucking hard, and it's so frustrating. Because it's like, you don't... it shows... First of all, it shows how manipulative they are. But it also shows a gross, like, misunderstanding of what canon is in relation to storytelling. Like, canon is not like, oh, everything has to be 100% interconnected and, like, this massive web, and all of it relies on each other and never, ever deviates from itself. Nah. Canon doesn't mean no deviation. Canon means, like, there's this through line that is 100% correct. This is, like, the backbone for everything. This is the timeline. and then there are things built off of it. And then based on the perspective of characters, things can shift. Details can be embellished, or they can be subdued, or they can be, they can be a bit off. That happens. But to take that and be like, oh, there's no canon. It's like, no, there's a soft canon. Like, the backbone is solid. It's just the finite details that are malleable. And again, that's why it's always so frustrating to talk to these people, and it shows that they're trying to be manipulative. But anyway, I don't want to dwell on that. I'm painting. I'm enjoying my hobby. I'm not going to let those assholes ruin it. Actually, before I get to the back legs, I almost forgot. I have to finish the front arm. I rant a lot during these streams, I've noticed. Like last time, I ranted about deconstruction stuff for stories because we talked about Game of Thrones, and then I brought up Invincible. I don't know. I probably should go back through these streams, find like little sections where I rant, and clip them out and upload them as videos. I might actually get a lot more viewership if I do that. Love the eye bit at the top. I'm glad you love it. I love it too. It took me a while to do that. But yeah, that's hand painted. That's not a decal. Actually, I know some people who buy little sticker eyeballs, like they basically googly eyes, and they super glue them on. I don't like doing that. Like, eyeballs are actually quite simple if you have this much space to work with to paint on. Like, that's a huge canvas to work with. Imagine trying to paint this same eyeball, but like on that. That would be so fucking hard. And even then, compared that to like an Astartes like headpiece eyeball, that's even harder. Back and forth with chat. Eh. Be deep street. Communicating with chat. I don't know what to do. Welcome to stream. Hi there. Hello. How are you? Welcome. I am just, hopefully, finishing my Maulerfiend. Pretty sure I can finish it in time. Because all I have left on the docket to do is I gotta do all these bits in Iron Warriors. This I'm pretty much leaving. At least I'm fairly confident. I'm thinking about it. I then gotta get the back leg components. And once those are done, I'm going to glue it on the base, and then all that's left is the tendrils. Like, they're it. Well, I guess also got to get these, but that's going to be real quick. So I am towards the finish line here. The very last thing I'm doing is adding all the blood for the blood god effects, but that's going to be more like fucking around. I'm new to 40k and I got my first intercessor pack. Oh, cool. Nice. Welcome to 40k. What got you into 40k? I always love hearing newbies' stories of what got them in. I'm gonna throw out two guesses because they're pretty safe guesses. Either the Astartes animation or Bricky. Bricky's I guess I could do either or on this, but Bricky's introductory videos, I'll say. Those are my two guesses. Tell me if I got them, or if I'm way off. There. Sorry, I saw a little nick there that I missed. Okay. Eyes are easy to make anyway. Most of the time. It depends on how detailed you're trying to be. Trying to be really detailed with eyes, I disagree. Trying to be like bare bones, like white and a black dot. Then yeah. It just depends on the complexity you're going for. You're young but genuinely interested. Okay. Honestly, the Black Templars, 2 years ago, I saw the Flash Kits anti-video. Oh, what a... Wow, I would not have guessed that, but that is a great way to get into it. Okay. I was hooked. I suck at painting, but I'm truly passionate about 40k. My family ain't too supportive, but... I mean, like, they're not anti-40k, are they? Like, I understand if by supportive you mean, like, they're not, like, helping you, like, buy stuff, but... Yeah, I'd imagine that they don't think it's a bad hobby to have. I mean, I say that, but the expenses, I guess, are pretty high. I can see parents being like, nah, that shit's too expensive. Like, stop wasting your money on those. Like, if you want to assemble stuff, buy Legos. Even then, Lego kits are getting fucking expensive these days. I went to Walmart the other day, and I saw, like, a Lego Star Wars kit for, like, $140. I was like, what the fuck? It was a pretty big kit, though, so I guess there was a lot to do there. But still, that was... Whew. For the hobby, I'm about a year, maybe a little more myself in the hobby. Oh, man. Oh, we got a bunch of newbies here. I thought you had been here longer than that, Havoc. Nah, I've been in the hobby 11 years now. 11? Yeah, it's been 11. And I think in late 2024, it'll be 12 years. No, yeah. I'm just trying to remember the exact time I got in, technically. So yeah, it late 2024, like Christmas 2024. Will probably be the time I've been in for 12 years. And most of my friends in the hobby have been in way longer than me. I got a friend named Ball. He's in his 40s, and he's been in the hobby since the 80s, pretty much. He's in his late 40s. So. Blood for the Blood God. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. Indeed. So I don't know what to do. Did you see my Templar? Speaking as somebody who's got into the Black Templars, did you see my Black Templar video? I made a video, a lore video, long form, because I do have a short form series that's more comedic called In a Nutshell on the channel. But I uploaded my second go around at a long form lore today, not today, a couple days ago, and it was on Black Templars. And I think I did a pretty good job. I'm pretty proud of that video, but it's not perfect. But then again, I'm my own harshest critic, so when I say that, like, I'm thinking of very anal stuff. Overall, I do think it's a really solid video. You didn't see that? Yeah. Check it out when you have time. It's a pretty lengthy video. Well, not compared to like it's not like a Mauler length video, but it's over 40 minutes. Too demonic, fair enough, because of the demons. I mean, yeah, but if you play Imperium, you can always say to your folks, hey, but I'm playing the faction that kill the demons. I'm not playing the demons, I'm playing the ones that kill the demons. They're purging them from our world. They're cleaning up the streets. I don't know if this is just me, but Iron Warriors, like, dyed the tip of my brushes like a dark color. It's not coming out. Could play Night Lords. We aren't demonic. We don't like chaos. You can't. You can say you're not chaos, but you can't say you're not demonic. You're terrorists. I think that's a very bad thing to tell. I don't know what to do. To do, ironically. Like, hey, yeah, play Night Lords. We're not demonic. Yeah, you make the demons look like the good guys. See older players' collections. Know a guy with OG Rogue Trader. I don't have Rogue Trader, I'll tell you that. But yeah, it is cool to see the old guys. Like, I've seen Ball's collection. His collection of, like, old stuff is cool. He's also been 3D printing a lot of stuff lately, too, so there's that. He's got a cool collection. You know, in my 12 years, I just got, you know, that's not all of my orcs. That's just what I could fit on the shelf. But got my Stompa back there. I got a truck A rocket truck squig buggy. I got a bunch of, like, my fully painted army is my orcs. Like, that's what I've been collecting the longest. That's my biggest collection over there. Those are my guys. Like, I go to most tournaments with my orcs. I also got, you know, my Horse Heresy army. That's only starting of it. I haven't assembled everything or primed it or everything. But, you know, I got some of them. Got my Black Templar themed Imperial Knight way back there. I got that whole shelf is, like, a lot of my stuff. But believe it or not, the vast majority of my minis are not on that shelf. That is probably 1/10 of my overall minis. And that's not even including my pile of shame. Just assembled or primed or assembled and primed minis. I have a bunch of them in, like, containers. And they're in, like, a different room. And I'm hoping to have enough bookshelves or enough shelves, period, to, like, display them at some point. But that's going to be a lot. Because I have over, I want to say, 3.5k to 4,000 points of orcs. I have, for Space Marines, I think I have about 3,000 points of Space Marines. Might be off by a little bit there. Might be like 2.8k, 2.9k. I have 1,000 points of Sisters of Battle, but they're not assembled. I have, I want to say 1.8k points. No, I have more tanks now, don't I? I have like 2.1k points of Imperial Guard. And I have about 2,000 points of Death Guard. As I'm listing this off, I'm just thinking in the back of my head, how much did I spend all this, like, over the last 12 years? Probably more money than I ever want to admit I've spent on this shit. It's not even including paints. Goddamn. But, yeah, and then obviously I got my World Eaters stuff for Christmas, which I got a Combat Patrol for them, this Maulerfiend, Angron, and a Chaos Rhino. Plus Corn Berserkers, and 2 man, I have so much shit. Thank you. I don't know what to do for the... Well, I know what you did want to do, which is give me money, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Is that Canadian dollars? Ah, that is Canadian. Oh, okay. You're just north of me. I don't know what to do. Donated 5 Canadian dollars. Not much, but thanks for being supportive for me. Yeah, no problem. And I'm supportive of anybody who gets in the hobby, if you actually want to get into the hobby. If you come to me and you're like, hey, I'm new to 40k, but I think, like, Space Marines should be half female, and stuff like that, then I'm like, that's where my support goes out the window. Because for me, your support isn't the hobby. You're here for different reasons. But, you know, you seem to be, you know, just initially, for sure, genuinely interested in the hobby for what it is, and, you know, you want to engage in it for what it is, what it has been. So, yeah, of course, I'm always supportive of new, genuine fans. And you don't even need to have impressive collections or anything. Hell, I've known some people who have, like, no miniatures, but they're really big in the lore. They really like the media of it, you know. And I always love welcoming those people in. So, it's always good to get real, genuine fans into the hobby. You got a few Rogue Trader era mod? Really? Nice, Shadow. Ooh. I probably have 1,800 to 2k points of Black Templars from 5th edition. Nice. Nice. So you have pre-Primaris minis too, then. So you have Firstborns. Hold on to those Firstborns, man. That might be a retirement fund. Because now that they discontinued Firstborn Marine kits, those things are going to be pretty valuable in only like 10 years. Hell, they're valuable now, but like fast forward 10 years when scarcity really starts hitting those old kits, a lot of people are going to be making bank. Although 3D printing might hit that. Anyway, point is, hold on to them for hobby reasons, but if someday, you know, you ever want to sell out, you're probably going to make some money. So there are some people who will pay good money for that shit. I say that, but I spent, my sister spent $20 on like a little bucket of like old minis some guy was selling, 20 bucks. And it has, like, a bunch of metal models from, like, the 80s and 90s. Like, one of them is a pewter model. I didn't realize it was pewter until I'd cleaned it off and like, stripped its paint. I was like, this is a fucking pewter model. But I have a bunch of new metal minis as well. They're for fantasy, but still. Made a Warhammer OC that's kind of trashy, but worth it. When you say OC, I mean original character. So you have like a model, like you have your own little custom lore and kits and stuff for? Or when you say OC, are you talking like a full-on fan fiction? One of them is a 1989 Space Marine Librarian. Nice. I'm getting the Age of Darkness box, but I am going to spend a dime on it. Yes, it's expensive. But it's worth it for the retail, the MSRP prices for all that stuff individually. Store credit and my LGS. Yeah. Or get devalued like the Metal Fight Beyblade series. It's also fanfic. Oh, also fanfic. Okay. Nice. I mean, most of us kind of do that. I did that with my my Templar themed Imperial Knight. Like I have a whole like little canon, like head canon for why that is and why his house has the Templar cross on it. It's a debt, a life debt, and vow of loyalty to the Templars for saving their world. They used to have their own heraldry, but they abandoned it in favor of honoring the Templars who helped save their world and spared them the grip of the dark, the chaos. See that out. 40K has really good fan fictions. I mean, like any community, I think there's like a spectrum. There's quite a few bad fan fictions, but I think 40K has the best ones for sure. Like if we exclude like the cringy fanfics that a lot of people have like published for every kind of fandom, and we just focus on the highest quality ones, I do think 40K has the best ones. I think there are some really dedicated fans who have spent like so many hours like developing their own little custom ends of the lore, which is really cool. It's really cool to see. I love those homebrews. And they're always welcome in like hobby spaces, in my opinion, as long as you don't try and push your head canon or your fan fiction as canon. Always remember, your stuff is your stuff. It's cool. It's awesome. No doubt other fans want to read and see about it, at least to an extent. But remember to separate it from what is official lore. There are some people who have struggled with that. Excuse me. That was me for a long time. I loved the media and video games. Played Dawn of War 2, Retribution, Total Biscuit, TTS. Total Biscuit covered 40K? I don't know. I didn't watch Total Biscuit back in the day. TTS, text-to-speech device, a few friends, and Arch starting solidifying me the 40K actually was. Yeah. Those are pretty good sources. I already shared, I think I shared it last time, in fact. I already shared my story how I got into 40K, so if you guys wanna see that, go check out the VOD of the last stream. But I got in through a friend, is like the gist of it. A friend just indoctrinated me. Someone said this when I shared the story last time. A lot of people were, well, I say a lot. A couple people in chat were like, "This sounds like the indoctrination of a cult." Like, it kind of was. It worked. Here I am, years later. Years later, making videos on this shit. So. I'm so glad I have tomorrow off. But I'm still so pissed I wasted my energy going into work, risking my life on the road, and then getting sent home early. I barely made enough for like gas money. It was so frustrating. It's like, why did I drive all the way out here? Why did I risk my life on snow-covered roads that are barely trespassable? Sorry, traversable, I guess is the correct word. What do you mean, Asmogan? Love Can Bloom. Love Can Bloom is a classic fanfic. Love Can Bloom. I don't know that one, and I get the vibe that that's a smarmy comment, and I don't want to know what Love Can Bloom now is. I will tell you this: there's no doubt in my mind that there's a Drukhari fanfic out there that is just disturbing. Like intentionally so. Whoever will write that, if you want to be faithful to Drukhari, there is no doubt a really fucked up fanfic out there involving a Drakari and an Imperial Guardsman. My classmates think that 40k is for edgelords. I mean, it kind of is. Somewhat. Like, that's not an unfair statement. I do think it's a little simplifying things, but it's not entirely wrong. It's a very edgy setting. Like, it's a grimdark. So, by default, you do have to appreciate edginess to get the most out of 40k. So, I don't think it's unfair. I think your classmates are fair to make that comment. I would simply say in response, though, it's like, yes, it is. But it's so much fun. Like, it's edgy, yes, but it's hilariously edgy. Like, even if you're not a fan of edgelords, if anything, if you like to tease edgelords, you might get a lot out of it for that alone because it's so edgy. It comes back around to being funny. Like, it comes back around to being kind of comedic because it's so edgy, because it's so over the top. Like, that's the beauty of it. Like, it's so dark, it's so ridiculous, it's so edgy that it just does a full 180 and comes back around to being funny. I think the reason that 40k has so much good fanfiction is because there is more lore and characters that you really need to know to be able to write. I mean, yeah. And there's also, like, a lot of specialization, right? Like, like, for example, you know, I'm a huge Black Templar fan, but I don't know jack shit about the Thousand Sons, except for the broad strokes. Like, I know... Well, I guess I know the full backstory of Magnus, so there's that. Like, I know more than people who don't know that. But if you were to ask me, like, name a character other than Magnus in the Thousand Sons, I'd draw a blank. I'd be like, don't got one. I might even know some in the back of my head from, like, some of the books, but unless you say the name to me, it won't come to my brain. So, but if you're like, hey, who's Sigismund? I'm like, oh, Sigismund, first High Marshal of the Black Templar, and also the first captain of the Imperial Fist Legion of Astartes, which is the 7th Legion, and it was fathered by Primarch Rogel Dorn. Horn and like, okay, who's Bohemond? Bohemond, High Marshal of the Black Templars during the War of the Beast, and who's Helbricht? You know, like, I can immediately start, like, listing off shit. So I think with 40k in the community, there's a lot of specializations, and once you specialize so much into your fandom of, like, a specific faction, once you then get into the fanfic or homebrewing of stuff, you've spent so much time anally going over every nook and cranny of that thing that once you do the fan fiction, there's just so much detail to reference. And you want to reference all of it. Plus, in the 40k community, I think because it's a grimdark and because it's about everyone being fucked over, and there's really, other than the Primarchs and the God Emperor, there's really no OP or immortal or safe characters in the lore. So I think with a lot of people, when it comes to the fandom that homebrew and do fan fictions, they unlike a lot of other fan bases where they do so from the point of view of making themselves an OC and then making that OC like a Gary Stu or a Mary Sue in the lore. I think the 40k community doesn't do that as much, because if you're a true fan of 40k, you recognize that 40k is not that kind of setting. You're not writing a story about a gallant hero who saves everybody and does everything right and doesn't fuck anything up. You're writing a character into a universe that is fundamentally, from the ground up, fucked. Everything's fucked. Everything's horrible. No one truly wins in the far-off victory. You might win battles, but the Great War never ends, and if it does, you're not the winner. No one wins if it does end eventually. It'll only end when all life is annihilated. So that's why I think with a lot of fans for 40k who write fan fiction, when you reflect upon that aspect of the lore, when you write that fan fiction, you're writing in, I won't say realistic characters or realistic like stuff, but for the universe, you're writing in fairly realistic or grounded events and characters for the most part. Like, you might write them in heroic scenarios where normally in the lore people might die, but they make an exceptional victory. That's still written into the lore, but you always have to have that tone of, but it wasn't enough to end all things. It's still not a happy ending overall. It's just a happy ending in this one specific moment. But it is soured by the fact that later on everything's screwed. And I think most of the fanfic community for 40k are pretty good about that. I think. But that's based on what I've read for fan fictions. And I've read quite a few. Ooh. Best Simba from Lion King voice. Edgy, but extremely fun. Dry. So let me hit up the rest. Phantom gets enough from that from Matt Ward, so they don't tend to write Gary Stews. True. Like, Matt Ward does a lot with that shit. He's not the only one. I think Matt Ward gets a lot of shit for that. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, he's the Gary Stew guy. I mean, he kind of is, especially with all the Ultramarine shit, but he's not the only one to have done it. Like, there's some of that in other factions. Not as much, though, for the lore. That's a little bit different from the fanfic community because, well, I guess, you know, you're referencing that for like the Black Library writers. But yeah, we get it. We do get enough of that from Matt Ward. Actually, is he even still actively writing a GW? I think he left, didn't he? Pretty sure he did. Or maybe not left, but retired, maybe? I don't know, I could be talking out of my ass on that one. I haven't heard his name in a long time. Like, in official capacity. I've heard him referenced by, like, the fan base a lot for, well, the reasons we just discussed. He's Mr. Ultramarines fan. Let's make them OP as fuck. He came back. Oh, he's back? Oh, fuck. Please tell me he's writing side stories and he's not writing the main shit anymore. Oh, God. That man being back is frightening. I mean, to be fair, he might be a really cool... I'll say this right now about any of the writers for Black Library. They might all be cool, amazing people if you meet them, get to know them, learn their real-life backstories, and like what they think about the lore. They might be like major fans by all accounts. But some of them really fuck up. Like, major so. Some of them I directly don't like ADB, but that's because he said stuff in the past. Like, he's put his foot in his mouth. But I think that's very different from writers who, like, I might mock or belittle their stuff on the basis of I don't like the writing. I don't like the inconsistencies it has with the lore. And I'll say this right now to any of them that I haven't met, assuming they might be cool people by all accounts and might not be super political, might not be super, like, you know, the bad crowd, I'll say. Touristy crowd. Should be ironic for one of the Black Library writers, but at this point it's kind of... Sometimes it feels like they hire any fucking rando off the streets of England to write for Black Library, so... Sometimes that might be true. But... I don't know. I don't know Matt Ward's, like, stance on the canon conversation. I don't know what his, any of that stuff is. I only know, like, the end product of his product, which is his writings, and that is a lot of Gary Stu elements with the Ultramarines. Didn't he write the Blood Angels and Necrons book together? And Flying Dreadnoughts? I'm not sure on that front. I don't know, like, what each writer, like the very few I remember, like ADB, for example. I remember ADB wrote Hell's Reach, which is one of my few compliments to ADB. ADB wrote that very, very well. And ADB, I know in general, writes the Chaos books, or Chaos-centric books, pretty well as well. But outside of, like, what ADB has done, and, like, a handful of the other writers, I don't inherently know what everyone has written. Like, I don't know the names of all the books that Matt Ward has written. I normally just assume when I come across an Ultramarines book, though, it's written by Matt Ward. Not always, but fairly often. Biggest hard-on for Smurfs? Yeah, it's because they're the poster boys. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a mandate in the Black Library offices that, like, hey, if there is a book involving or about the Ultramarines, they cannot be made out to be the losers. Like, fundamentally, they cannot be made out to be weak. Like, they need to be, like, the most badass, the most attractive, the most, like, impressive characters around. Because they are literally the poster boys. Like, Space Marines as a whole are, but the Ultramarines are the poster boys. They are the format on which all preview models are painted. So you can't make them look bad. Because imagine, like, selling forth and advertising with this faction, and then in the lore you wrote them to be super fucking pushovers, they're bitches, they're getting their asses kicked constantly, they're constantly losing battles. Then people who had bought them off of that old artwork would be like, what the fuck? It's like, these guys suck! That being said, they could still reformat that energy to apply other places. Hello, Holo Art Games. I think that is Litany. Because it's the same avatar. What are you doing? The Blood Angels teaming up with the Silent King was an awesome moment. I also think it still worked fairly well with Dante, just following the whole meeting up with I'll kill him after. Yeah, that's pretty appropriate. Is Gunny? Oh, is funny because all the trailers we see the Ultramarines losing. I mean, that is true. Like, the media, ironically, is of them getting their asses kicked a lot. But in the actual overall lore, though, I think there's a man. I would not be surprised if in the novels, in that stuff, that they're always made out to win. Because if they lose it, again, they're the poster boys. Like, yeah, the poster boys losing all the time, and people don't really want to get what's on the poster. That'd be like advertising a John Wick movie, but at the end of the movie, he loses. Before anyone references John Wick 4, spoilers, by the way, spoiler warning. That he didn't necessarily, like, he may have that happen to him, but he didn't lose necessarily. By all accounts, he got what he wanted out of that situation. So there's a difference between losing and dying. Sometimes they're the same thing, but not always. You can die and still be victorious. Like, a good example is V for Vendetta, right? In V for Vendetta, he won. He may have died at the end of the story, but he got what he wanted. Parliament blew up. And hopefully, fingers crossed, everything after that resulted in good things happening for people. It's me, yeah. Ah, okay. Just double check it. Sometimes I'm not sure because the YouTube name is different from what I'm used to on Discord. A friend and I both applied to do writing for 40K. I mean, I hope you get in. By the sounds of it, you're an actual fan, so it would be great to have actual fans in there. If they're gonna hire like nearly everybody who seems to apply for writing there, might as well hire some real fans. My friend actually got an interview. Okay, that's cool. I wasn't considered because I don't live in the UK. I mean, that tracks. Say we will about GW as a company. They are very. How do I put this? They're kind of xenophobic, like real life xenophobic, not like in lore. Well, I guess they're both, but like if you're American and stuff. Right. First of all, I'll start off making my point by pointing out this. You'll notice that the prices in the UK, if you were to like transfer or do like the conversion stuff for like how much it costs, baseline, if you're in the UK, you save quite a bit of money buying GW products as a living person in the UK, because again, like their pound amounts do not translate to identical amounts here in the US for dollar amounts. Even if you do, like, people say, oh well, that's because the currencies have different values. It's not just that. Like, even if you do the conversions, like you take the costs or prices of things in the UK and you convert them from those pounds per sterling, and you convert them to USD, it's still less than what is actually the MSRP here in the United States. So they upcharge foreigners for 40K hard. And some places you can't make the argument it's just because it costs a lot to ship the product. Some places it feels like it's personal, like Australia. Have you seen the MSRP prices in Australia for 40K products? Like you think the US is upcharged. They upcharge up the ass in Australia. Like, some places that GW ships products to, they just upcharge to hell and back. And it just makes you want... Because it's not like they're shipping it to a third world country. They're shipping it to another first world country with proper, like, shipping and receiving industries with not that bad of rates. And then they're upcharging, like, ridiculous amounts. So, there's a little bit of, like, xenophobia in GW, I think. And before anyone thinks I'm, like, starting, like, a pitchfork thing. No, like, it's fair. They're a British company, and it's fine to be a British company with pride in being British and looking at foreign bodies and being like, all right, we're gonna upcharge and upsell to them because we don't care about them as much. It's, in my opinion, a company is allowed to feel that way. Like, if you're the head of a company and you want to make a domestic product, but you also want to make the monies of, like, foreign markets, I don't think, like, you're morally or ethically a bad person for upselling. I do think the way GW does it is to almost that extent because of how much they upsell. But I think, like, it's fine to increase prices for foreign markets as opposed to domestic. I think that's fine. Like, it is fine to have a preference for your own culture and your own community engaging in your own product. I don't think that's that bad. I'm jokingly saying xenophobic, but it's kind of there a little bit. They really seem to like really upsell though, like, depending on the market. So it's kind of funny. UK treating Australians poorly? That tracks. I know, right? That's what I'm saying. It feels a little discriminatory. I don't know. I make my jokes, but still. Okay. Huh. I just noticed this. This side doesn't have a second joint like this side does. Never mind, I'm blind. It does right there. It's right there. Sorry, that blended in for my eyeballs. I totally didn't see. Ah! And I'm even wearing my glasses. I didn't even see it. I'm blind. I don't know if I'm going to do highlights on the armor. I'm thinking about not doing that, but at the same time, it would look cooler if I had highlights. But if I do highlights on all the paneling, I think it'll take away focus from the eyeball. Plus, that's a lot of extra work that I don't know if it might be worth it. It would really help it stand out. I might leave it without highlights on the paneling, though, for right now. I am not sure. I can always add them later. I guess it's not like a crucial thing at the moment, but Giant spiders and horrible prices. Australia. And crazy people, you know. No offense to Aussies out there, but y'all are crazy. Not because of like all the like wicked animals and shit out there, but it's also like you're I don't know, like you hear like Australia feels like the Florida to the British, but it's an actual separate country, I guess. But in terms of like relation, it's got that same like it's like you have British pompous, you know, kind of not all. Hashtag not all. But you got like British like fancifulness and poshness. And then the Aussies are like it's like the Floridians of the British people. It's like, oh mate, over there, look. It's a 50-foot alligator. I'm gonna go touch it. Wait, what? Good God. I'm sorry, but that's literally a Floridian. Tiki the Hut, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you. Shouldn't you paint it pink for the females? Fuck you. Fuck off. Also, how would Space Marine grav weapons work in Zero-G Void Combat? Love your content. I'm glad you love it. Did you see the Black Templar video, by the way? I'm pretty proud about that. I hope you have. And I'm glad you love the content overall. Why would Marine grav weapons work in Zero-G? I don't think they would work in Zero. Like, the grav weapons specifically. I don't know if they'd work. Then again, it's 40k. Like, random shit works in space that shouldn't. You gotta keep in mind that with 40k, the science fiction part, you gotta always emphasize the fiction. Because they really go some crazy places. I'd have to double check some of the writings on the grav weapons though. My assumption off the top of my head is that they wouldn't work in Zero-G environments. But then, again, it's 40k. The weapons are always made to work in pretty much every environment, even where like they don't make sense. So I might have to eat my words on that one. Logically, I would say it wouldn't work in Zero-G because it's a weapon that is based on gravitational control, right? And if you're in a Zero-G environment, it's in the name, Zero-G. There is no gravity in the environment you're in right now. So, but then again, some of the weapons, again, this is where I have to double check like the pseudoscience of it, is if they actually are generating a gravimetric field, then if they're in Zero-G, it would be pointless because it wouldn't be a factor at that point, other than like your mobility in combat. In terms of its effect on the actual weapon itself, though, Zero-G should have no impact, I would think. Because, again, it depends on if the weapon is generating the gravimetric field, or if it's drawing the gravimetric field from the gravity it's placed in. So it would depend on that detail. Like, I'd have to double check I'd have to double check the details in lore to make that determination. But it depends on those two factors. If it is generating its own gravimetric field, Void Combat would have no impact on it because it's generating it. It doesn't need a pre-existing gravitational or gravity environment to manifest its gravitational oomph. But if it generates it, then it just needs a power source. And by all accounts, that gravity wouldn't have an effect on if it has a power source or not. Granted, generating a gravimetric field in a weapon in Zero-G or in gravitational environments is still like, that's crazy science. And if you can figure out how to do that, you can figure out how to do some insane goddamn shit. But yeah. The short answer to the long is I'm not sure. But my instinct is no. They wouldn't work if they require a pre-existing gravitational environment to generate the gravimetric field that it's going to use as a weapon. Needed more female space marines. Ugh. 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 Female space marines. Go homeroom. Actually, fun fact. Well, I guess that doesn't count. Never mind. 4K is science fantasy. That makes Phantasy Star look science fiction in comparison. It is. It is fantasy for sure. It's enough science. It's enough sci-fi in purely aesthetic reasons, and there is like pseudoscience explanations for things, but it has a magic system like psychers and the warp and all that. So yeah, it's a fantasy more than it's sci-fi, but it has the veneer of sci-fi, so it's enough for me. Like I like the aesthetic of sci-fi, so that's why I prefer it over fantasy. Speaking of, I don't know if we have new people in chat, but I asked earlier, what is everyone's predictions for Warhammer Fantasy? I read off a few people's earlier, so but this is basically to everybody who's been here in the chat after that. What is everyone's predictions for fantasy? Do you think it's gonna be successful? Think it's gonna bomb? Think it's gonna be a short-term success but then a long-term failure? Other way around? Go ahead, shoot. Give me all the details. I always love hearing people's predictions. Cause that way later on we can all reference back to our theories and be like, alright, did this work out? Was I right? No? Okay, how was I wrong? And then we'll see. We all laugh depending on how bad we were guessing. Actually, I should do an open mic about that. I would do that tomorrow, but I've already promised my gaming community I'm going to do Final Fantasy XIV Myths of the Realm tomorrow. I don't know how long that's going to take to stream, though. I might do that, like, in the afternoon. Maybe I could do the open mic earlier in the day. I don't know. It depends on what time I get up tomorrow. I'm thinking about getting up fairly early, but I think that every day, and then I sleep in. That's how I know I'm getting old. According with the wiki. Okay, alright, Yokai's got the specs for us. All grav weaponry fires a stream of graviton particles, which affect already pseudoscience, which affects the local gravitational field of a target area. Okay, so it requires an existing gravitational field to manipulate. So if that's the case, then zero G would make those weapons useless. So my first guess was correct. So yes, if it requires a pre-existing gravitational field, yeah, it would have it would be a completely useless weapon in a zero G environment. It's 40k though, so somehow it would still work. It's gonna flop. I'd love to talk about that at some point. Oh yeah, go ahead and talk about it right here in chat. I mean, but if you mean like over a call, again, might do an open mic. Thinking about it. That is something I would debate overnight. It will succeed of OT focuses more on narrative play. OT? It will mirror Horus Heresy says 30k. Yeah, 30k has been an interesting... I don't know. I wouldn't say Horus Heresy's... I will say this for Horus Heresy. I don't think it's been a flop. Some people said Horus Heresy so far has been a flop. It almost was. I will say that. It almost was. GW just barely in time announced that they were releasing the assault squads. If they had literally been any later, like by a couple weeks, if they had waited a couple weeks to announce it, that would have made all the difference, in my opinion, for completely killing Horus Heresy and barely holding on to its survival, which I think it's kind of what it's at right now. Because they really need, in my opinion, they should have had assault squads ready to go the moment Horus Heresy was launching. And the fact that they didn't is a complete disgrace. Because a whole fundamental, like, backbone of any army is its melee, its ranged melee, sorry, it's ranged melee, it's ranged infantry and its melee infantry. If you are missing a whole half to that fundamental two-pronged pillar of armies, then you've completely failed, and like the game is gonna completely fall apart and fracture. So the fact they didn't have on launch ready to go assault squads and tactical squads is ridiculous. But thankfully they announced and later released assault squads just in time to help kind of give the Horus Heresy a little bit more life. But if they'd waited even a little bit longer, they would have killed Horus Heresy by how long it took them. It took a lot of people bitching about it to them as well. I think it'll be a short-term success, and that's me being generous to it. Yeah, that's fair. I think we're at least moderately successful like Horus Heresy because of the influx of fans from Total War. Maybe. I will say this. I'll comment about this a little bit. I think Havoc's not alone in this thought process. Because a lot of people, when they're thinking about whether fantasy will be successful or not, like they think about it through the lens of, okay, you know, yeah, there's the old guard fans, which not all of which are even still alive anymore to play it, but the real success is going to come from the new fans from like the Total War games. I will throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in that idea and say that that is a huge if, in my opinion, because it's a huge media. It's a huge medium expectation of transition for those fans to go from a video game that admittedly is expensive in its own right once you include all the DLC, but a video game, and then to a tabletop game. Because that already off of that, even if like prices wise it was very comparable, or let's say it was free, you still have a lot of people who are like, I only care about the video game stuff. I don't really care about the tabletop game. So it's already a huge gamble, even if like it was free to pick up all the miniatures and stuff and start playing, for people to come in and support it from the Total War games, who became fans via Total War. But you also got to then factor in... You also got to factor in the price, right? Because even if it, like, taking away the price and everything, you're still going to have not that many people transfer over. But once people see the price tag... I'm sorry, but even if you're a huge fan of the lore, even if you're a huge fan of the Total War game, and it really got you into it and really got you interested, you learned about Cetra, the Imperishable. You learned about Gringo. You learned about the Bretonnians. You learned about Reichland. Yeah, you learned about Kislev. Yeah, you really got into it via Total War, right? The moment you go to a hobby store thinking, I'm going to start playing Warhammer Old World, I can't wait to get started on this, and they go and see that Bretonnia box, or they see that Tomb Kings box, and they see the fucking number on it, 255 United States dollars. Half of them are going to do a 180 and walk the fuck out. That's just the fucking kits. And let's say one of them's dumb enough, like a handful of them are dumb enough to buy it. They might buy it thinking, not doing any research into the tabletop side of it, thinking, oh, it's going to be full model, like going to see all like the artwork and stuff of finished models for advertisement, and they're going to be like, yay. They're going to grab the box and leave and be like, yay. And they open the box and it's a bunch of fucking sprues. Like they see this shit, right? And you're brand new, you've only played the Total War video game. This is gonna come with a huge question mark over your head, isn't it? Like, you're gonna see that and you're like, but where's all the little miniatures? And then you're gonna see the rule book, you're gonna see it's this fucking thick. Then you're gonna see there's another book with it that's a completely different book. That's just about the army. And then you're gonna do a little bit of research and find you have to buy a shit ton of paints. You're gonna have to buy all these snipping tools. You're gonna have to buy plastic glue and super glue and hot glue, and you're gonna need to buy all this shit. I'm sorry, by the end of that, even if they get that far, how many of the fans from Total War do you think are gonna survive the medium transfer plus the price tag transfer and add life to fantasy? I'm sorry, but I feel like too many people are putting too much onus on the Total War side of things, adding new customers and adding new fans of the tabletop. I'm sorry. I think people would weight too much onus on that. I think people put too much weight into that. I'm going to be safe in my assumption that that's going to have little to no impact. And very few fans of the Total War side of it are going to transfer into customers and sales for the box sets. $255 for the box? Yeah, it's $255. Spiky Bits reported on it, and I covered their reporting and their detailing. And granted, they might be wrong. I haven't seen the pre-order prices. They might be completely different. But based on the Spiky Bits article that I saw, yeah, the box sets, the army box sets for like Bretonnia and Tomb Kings are $255 a piece, and they were valued at $550. Gray sprues, not even colors. Exactly. They're gonna be so fucking confused if any go that far. Ooh. I'm building my red Corsairs and was curious how grav weapons worked in the void. Yeah, I don't think they'd work in the void. Again, if it's based on using a pre-existing gravitational field to use, yeah, it doesn't make sense for them to work in a zero-G environment then. If it generated the field, that's different, but it doesn't generate it by the sounds of it, so yeah. 255? Motherfucker, my Swedish ass is getting $50 discount compared to you. I mean, yeah, actually, I don't know if you were here when I mentioned it earlier, like, GW xenophobia. Wow, we're really referencing, like, things earlier in the stream quite a bit here. But, just like 10 minutes ago, even. I brought it up, but GW upsell the fuck out of different places. And it's not just a currency shift. Like, they upsell the fuck out of certain places that's not Britain. Like, Britain gets the best sales on everything for GW products. And then, but if you take the same MSRP price tag for Brits, and you go to the United States, even if you do if you transfer over the amount, pounds per sterling, that kits cost there, in USD, that amount is still way lower than what the actual MSRP is in United States dollars. And then you go to Australia, and it's just a downright fuck you. It's just like, oh, you know how the Americans were upselling and upcharging? Well, fucking Australia, double it. We're gonna upcharge the fuck out of everybody that's not British. Refuse to sell to third world countries. I mean, I made that comment earlier, but I don't know if they're actually refusing to do that. Are they? Are they actually refusing to sell to third world countries? I mean, it wouldn't make sense to sell to third world countries. I mean, how many of them are engaging in such a hobby? I would say very few. But yeah, in the United States, it's supposed to be $255. But assuming they're already up for pre-order, I'll go straight to the horse's mouth if it were. That's not what I wanted. I guess I can go from there. Well, I keep taking these little tangents off of painting. I'm still making progress though. Like, I'm almost done. I'm making good headway. All right, U.S. English, yes. All right, the Old World, Kingdom of Bretonnia. Yep, $255. That is the correct price. So it's temporarily out of stock. Shocker. But the Bretonnia box set, the Warhammer of the Old World core set, Kingdom of Bretonnia, with the 1,250 points of units, is $255. Excuse me. Comes with a core rulebook and a army sheet and some dice. Obviously, the Pegasus Knights, the Lord, the Men-at-Arms, Knights. Yeah, it comes with the whole shebang, and it's $255. And apparently the codexes are called Arcane Journals. Hey, you getting a $50 discount compared to you? You guys are only getting it for $200? Fuck. Funny thing is, Swedish boxes is cheaper than in the UK. Is it really cheaper? I haven't actually checked the US. I find that interesting. Why would it be cheaper in Sweden? I don't know, maybe GW has a hard on for Sweden. It's like, oh, we wish we lived there. We wish we didn't live in the UK. We like the UK more than the Americans and the Australians, though. I don't know. Or maybe it's just, I don't know, a weird thing. I have to look at the AUD prices Australia and see how bad it is. I don't know, can I already set my nationality here. Maybe I can shift it. Americas, Asia Pacific, Europe, Australia, there it is. Shop, Old World, Sorry for anyone who came here for painting. Brief break here. I just want to save this. Kingdom of Britannia. Alright, so in Australia, it's $435. And Tomb Kings is $490? Holy shit. Wow. That's more than double. Actually, no, that's less than double the United States price, but that is almost double. $435, and that's not even factoring in sales tax. That's not factoring in shipping costs, because you do have to pay for shipping. Holy fuck. Like I said, the GW hate Australians, man. They really fucking hate Australians. Like, the upsale is ridiculous in Australia. Holy crap, man. That is so bad. It's almost double what it costs the United States. And again, I don't think the currency exchange is that bad. Like, I don't think if you took United States dollars... Actually, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that little experiment real quick. So let me do USD to AUD, right? Australian dollars. Yeah, there it is. All right. So United States dollars. Let's go 255. What would that be? The Aussies. All right. So if you took our cost, which is $255. What would that be if it was the exact same cost in Australian dollars? Granted, it's a lot. It's still $380.46 is how much it would be if directly converted. And so that means still, compared to that, it's almost $100 more. Wow, that's a bit more. It's probably closer to... It's still over $50 more to buy that box set in Australia in the Australian currency than it is for a direct conversion cost of what it costs us in the United States for the same product. They're charging them over $50 over a direct conversion. Sounds like odd pound, 15 pounds. Actually, that's the other thing I want to compare. What is 155 pounds? Well, let me convert again. All right, so let's go nationality. Let's go. Let's go UK. Shop. Old World. Kingdoms of Britannia. Just using the same example. So it's 155 pounds per sterling. All right, it's 155 pounds per sterling. All right, so let me duplicate here. So pounds to AUD. 155. All right, so 155 pounds sterling is $293.77 for the Australians. So that's over $140 upcharge from the British price. And again, that's a direct conversion. Direct conversion from 155 pounds is equal to 293 Australian dollars. And the kit costs, and the box set costs, 435 Australian dollars. So it's almost over $100. Holy fuck, man. This upsell, dude, jeez, like, there's someone in the GW, like, team that hates Australians. Like, whoever's in the marketing team hates Australians with a passion. That, or he's getting mandated from someone up top who does. Somebody in that company looks out their window across the horizon, thinks of Australia, And it's just like, fuck those pathetic prisoners. How dare we sell this product? Well, we'll make them pay. Make them pay well. Getting my tea. I'm rather perturbed. Like, Jesus Christ. Holy fuck, that is such an upsell. That is such an upsell. Wow. I'm just seeing that, like, makes my skin crawl. Like, that's such a high upsell. I just don't understand it. Alright, back to painting. Back to painting. That is just horrifying. Like, again, GW are xenophobic to an extent. Like, you can't deny it. They just, like, it's not just oh, it's the cost of shipping. No, it's not. Some, like, shipping in the modern day is cheaper than it's ever been. You cannot say that they're upcharging Australia almost like $180 after everything. Because, oh, it's shipping costs. No, there's hatred there. There's some dislike. There is some definite dislike. Wow. I got all the joints on both, and that arm at least for sure. The joints, little mechanisms. How long it's taking me to do the Maulerfiend? I can't wait till I get to Angron. Oh god, I get to Angron, that's gonna take like 100+ hours, especially if I do it on stream and I rant. How long did it take you? I could go to my hobby store finally with a fully painted World Eaters army in 10 years. And someone sees Angron and they're like, dude, how long did it take you to paint that? I'm gonna be like, you know, just 500 hours. What? What? Yeah, it took me 500 hours, but that was mostly because of the ranting. Refuses to elaborate further. Then again, like a Primarch model, especially like the 40k ones, which are as detailed as they are, they should take a while to do. Like, when I painted Conrad Kurz for Horus Heresy, which, I will say this, the Horus Heresy Forge World models for, like, the Primarchs and stuff, they're detailed, but they're nowhere, you can't, like, they're just pumped up basic Space Marine units, pretty much, in terms of complexity. Like, they don't have that much going on those models. Like, they have a little bit of more intricate armor. They're slightly bigger models, so they're easier to paint by, if anything. And they have, you know, exposed heads that you definitely gotta paint. But really, it's in the bases where a lot of, like, the complexity comes in with the Primarch models from Forge World for the Horus Heresy. Like, as much as, like, I think the most complicated one is probably, because I painted Conrad Kurz, and I've also painted my Sanguinius. And having painted two of them, I can say with certainty, they're just pumped up basic Space Marines with some extra detailing. Like, it's not that complicated to paint a Horus Heresy Forge World Primarch model. But for the 40k ones, though, especially with the Chaos Primarchs, the Demon Primarchs, such as Angron, such as Mortarion, and Magnus, you know how much fucking detail they have on that shit? That is way more like, the amount of detail on those models completely dwarfs their Horus Heresy counterparts. It's insane. Apparently they love Swedes. Got no idea why. I don't know. What is... Maybe they're huge fans of IKEA. Wait, that's not Swedish, is it? Sorry, I might have just did a racismus. Is that IKEA Sweden? Or am I off? I know IKEA is like somewhere in that region of the world, but IKEA is Sweden. Okay, for a second there I was like, wait, did I just associate one thing with the wrong thing? No, okay, good. That's Swedish. Maybe they're huge fans of IKEA furniture. I don't know. They're like, you know what? This furniture's dope. It took us like 6 years to build, but this furniture we have in the office, dope as hell. We're gonna give the Swedes a huge discount. Or maybe IKEA furniture directly said, hey, if you give my entire country discounts on your warhammer miniatures, we'll give you free furniture or something. I don't know. Something might have happened there. Could be a plot. A plot. Oh, did I get everything? I think I might have got everything. Got that. I say I got everything. I mean, like the arm. I'm not sure if I got all the details. There we go. Okay, so both arms are done now. That's good. So now I got to move to the back legs. Hit the back legs, these things, and then glue it to the base because it'll be done effectively at that point. And then once it's glued to the base and dry, then just got to get the tendrils. And the tendrils are going to be fairly quick. Because the tips are being left Rune Lord Brass. And then I'm just doing the rest of it. Either Iron Warriors or maybe Iron Hand Steel, maybe? Iron Hand Steel or Lead Belcher, maybe. I'm debating. And if I do, I will say this. It's already, like, obviously, this is already, like, if I were to bring this to a tabletop store, this is more than ready to play the game. At this point, I'm just, this is more than Battle Standard painted. It's way more than that already. But I'll probably do panel highlights like I did on my... Like I did for my, let me figure out where my focus is right here. Like I did for my Dark Apostle. Like there's little highlights across his armor for like orange and a little bit of yellow dashes here and there. Probably best seen on his pauldron here. Yeah, because it's like red base, then there's like a salmon color, and then it fades into like a vibrant orange towards like the highest highlight point. So, I might do a highlight like that. But I think I'll probably do that after everything else. If I'm feeling like going the extra mile for the Maulerfiend. I've already gotten to the point of painting a fucking Sauron eyeball on him. If I'm going to go that far, I might as well do panel highlights, but I'm kind of afraid if I do highlights like this, it's going to take focus away from that eyeball a little bit and spread that focus around the rest of the model. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending. So, I don't know. Decisions. Watch enough Krendor to know it's Swedish. Maybe shipping is cheaper. Even if it is cheaper, you can't necessarily account that for the whole. Like Litany said earlier, they're getting the Bretonnian box set for $50 less than what we're expending for it here in the United States. that level of a discount doesn't come from just shipping. Like, let's say shipping is free to Sweden. Would you really knock off 50 whole dollars? Nah, you'd knock off 10. You'd knock off 20. You wouldn't knock off 50. Like, 50 is almost a third of what it costs in the UK. Because it's only 155. Granted, that's not a direct conversion to USD, but for pounds per sterling, it's only 150 there. If you were to knock off 50, that's a whole third the price. Like, you don't do that just because you save some money on shipping. And likewise, you don't up it nearly $200 fucking dollars for the Australians because the shipping's a little expensive. Again, the amount that they're increasing and decreasing the prices depending on where it's sold is fucking ridiculous. You cannot account it and put it all on just the shipping cost or lack thereof. Like, there is some personal dislike somewhere involved. Personal like and dislike, depending on what we're talking about. Upcharge isn't much better for Americans. I looked at the weapons upgrade box for standard Marines for GW and win slightly. It's nearly $50. Doesn't surprise me. Yeah, we got it bad here in the United States as well. Not as bad as Australia. Australia continues to be the most middle fingered up by GW. But yeah, we aren't loved by Games. There's no love lost for the United States from Games Workshop. Your collection's mostly secondhand. Can list off what I bought firsthand from GW, Forge World, or local store. Mark III Space Marines, the 10-man, okay, nice. Rhino, Cadia, Mark III is probably one of my favorite armor sets. Cadia Command Squad, old one. Oh, the old one. Okay, I think they both look good, but the old one, nice. Gore's set of 3 60mm bases. Just the bases? Okay. Asterion Moloch. I don't know that one off the top of my head. Ivanis Mkomi and Hakashian or Hakashian Iakos. Or Iakos. Or Iakos. That is what I have bought firsthand. Okay. Some of that I recognize. Like the Mark III Space Marines and the Cadia Command Squad. Nice. Asterion Moloch, Ivanis, Nkomi, and Hakashian Iakos. I don't know any of those at all off the top of my head. I need to see pictures. But it sounds cool. So the whole price change in the 2011 to 2012, it was to make it cheaper for shipping, then it went up 3 times for Australia. Is Minotaur's Chapter Master. Ah, okay. Okay, that helps me a little bit. Minotaur's character right now OP'd. Or ooped. Is it ooped or OP'd? I assumed you mean OP'd. Okay, let's move to the back legs. To the back legs, I say. Then I get to put the awesome thing on the base. On the beautiful base. Which will contrast a lot with the red and gold, the red and Runelord gold of this, and then like the really darker tones of like the black and the purple and the gray. Hopefully they're complementary, as I hope they are, but we'll see once they're properly combined. Yeah. All right. This is where we get little tiny details. Source character, which is out of production. Okay. Ooped. $7 for the set of 60mm basic. Contains 3. I was making guard, but secondhand. Space Marines is way cheaper. Secondhand everything is way cheaper for 40k. Now you go on eBay and you can get some pretty awesome sales on eBay. If you can find a pre-painted army that was painted horribly, and the person who's selling it knows it was painted horribly, and they're like selling it for like pennies on the dime, and you know how to strip minis, you're gonna make one hell of a purchase. The best purchases I found were on Facebook Marketplace, though, like in my local area. Like entire box sets clearly being sold by someone who didn't buy it for themselves and they don't understand what it is. Like selling this box of toy soldiers for like $30, and it's like it's like fucking the Indominus box set, and it's unopened, and you're like, yes, toy soldiers, mine, give me. Granted, those are rare to find. Most people are smart enough to Google like the cost of things these days before they like try and sell them online. But on that rare occasion that old lady found something in her son's attic that he forgot to take with him after he went to college or some shit, and sells it on without looking it up, those are the days. Those are the days. It's the one time you don't feel bad for like not telling someone else like, hey, by the way, you could have sold that for this much. I got it for like $5, but you know, you could have sold it for hundreds. Whoopsie. Beyond garage sales, yeah. Man. So small. So many details. Oh my god. I hate when like these little like dips and mods here is so small. It's so much to paint. Great, the paint's dry. Velocities. Why on earth would remain moist? For me. Problem is when you open the box and it's actually a knockoff. That is also a thing that happens. That's true. You gotta be careful. Sometimes it's an old lady who doesn't know what she's doing, and sometimes it's an old lady who knows too well what she's doing. Like, oh, silly me, I found this box of intercessors. Oh, I'll sell it for $4. You pick it up, it's just the box, but then you open it, there's a rock in it. It's like, oh, crafty old lady. And meanwhile, she's like, back to my collection. She opens up her closet, and there's like a giant fucking like thing of like 40k models. Oh god, that feels like that should be a comedy skit. I feel like that should be a comedy skit somewhere. The old lady who knows too well what she's doing. Always sell you temps for a good price. If I can get off my lazy button, inventory them. Yeah, I probably can make a good dollar amount on my. I guess for me, a good example would be. I could probably make a pretty penny off of my Death Guard, because I'm not gonna collect Death Guard. I got a bunch of box sets for that stuff, but in hindsight, I'm not really that big on lore wise. I really like Mortarion and the Death Guard, but Not as much as Khorne, not as much as the World Eaters. I don't love Angron as a character. As a, like, force of pure rage, he's hilarious. I like Karn more as a character. But generally speaking, like, World Eaters I think are better than Death Guard. And Khorne is better than Nurgle. So, I'm probably going to sell those models at some point. I don't know if I want to paint them all, though. Like, if I paint them, like, with detail, or even if it's just basic details, and not even, like, do fancy stuff like highlighting and things like that, I could probably sell them for a decent, pretty penny. Like, painted models, like, per model, you could probably make, like, $25. 25, 35, somewhere like that. Always do price comparisons with other people's sales, though. That fluctuates. But generally speaking, you could save a good, pretty penny if... Or you could get a pretty penny if you paint them. As opposed to just selling them as the kits or the sprues. Hell, if you sell them primed and assembled, you can probably upcharge a little bit compared to selling them in just the box kits. Although, again, that fluctuates. $4 for a rock. What a steal. They normally charge you $15 for this. I mean, especially nowadays. I mean, back in the day, there used to be, like, pet rock stores and shit like that that would sell them for, like, $5. Usually, like, kids would run them, though, like lemonade stands. Two dreadnoughts are secondhand. Okay. A lot of mine are going to be secondhand or 3D printing going forward. Because I like the box dreads. I really don't like the... What they call dreadnoughts now. But like I think it's called the Contemptor. And like the Primaris released ones. I really fucking hate them. Like, I didn't hate them. I just like disliked them before. But now that I know that the old box dreads are getting retired in favor of them, I hate the Contemptor Dreadnought and the other Dreadnoughts that came post-Primaris. Like, I'm so mad that those are becoming the standard and box dreads have been annihilated in favor of them. That still annoys the hell out of me. And they should annoy the hell out of everybody. It's like, for what we lost versus what we got kind of situation. It's stupid as all hell. Okay, so I'm definitely thinking of the wrong one. Contemptor 30k, they're not Primaris. Alright, what one am I thinking of then? Well, Dreadnought 40k. Which one am I thinking of? Brutalish. The Brutalish Dreadnought, I think. Is that it? It looks like the one I was thinking of. Yeah, Brutalish. Brutalis. Yeah. Contemptor is the other one. I was thinking of the wrong one. Yeah. And the Redemptor. The Redemptor, I don't like that one. I don't know if that one's 30k or not. Regardless if that one's 30k or not, that one I think still looks wrong. I miss my box dreads. I want my box dreads. Like the Venerable Dreadnought, the Ironclad, those... I'm so mad those are being retired. Yeah. That one is Primaris? Okay, well, I hate it regardless. But, yeah. The Redemptor and the Brutalist were the ones I was... the Brutalist was the one I was thinking of when I was saying Contemptor, so... Apologies for the confusion there. That was... I got the name. The name was mixed up in my head, but the image in my head was of the Brutalist. Yeah, that and the Redemptor. I'm so mad that those are now the standard Dreadnought template, and box dreads have gone the way of the dodo. It's infuriating. Because the box dreads, in my opinion, were as iconic, if not more so, in some ways, than Space Marines. Like, those old box dreads. Like, when I think of Space Marines and Space Marine Legions, when I think of the word Dreadnought, I don't think of a Brutalist. I don't think of a Redemptor. I think of the Ironclad Dreadnought. I think of the Venerable Dreadnought. I think of Bjorn. I think of, hell, I think of even the Leviathan Dreadnought, long before I think of this shit. I'm still very mad that we lost those classic Dreadnoughts in favor of this dumb, in my opinion, less unique mech design. Like, I'm sorry, I fundamentally cannot agree with anybody who sees the Redemptor or the Brutalist and is like, oh yeah, those are really cool and unique designs. No, they're fucking not. They look more like a standard, like, lumbering mech from any other sci-fi to me. Like, they look less unique than the box dreads. Like, you look at a Venerable Dreadnought, I'm sorry, but that only conjures up images of 40k. I don't look at it and I think of other things. I look at the Brutalist and I think of fucking Avatar with the blue aliens and those lumbering mechs that they fucking have. I think of StarCraft, weirdly enough, with like the Thor, not the Thors, but the no, I think it was the Thors, wasn't it? Because it was the bigger version was the Odin or whatever. Point is, you know, I think of like other sci-fis like that. I don't think of, yeah, the Odin, then the Thor. Okay, yeah, that's what I think of. I don't think of really anything like you. I don't think of you uniquely 40k, and I don't think of it uniquely within Space Marines. Like, it looks like more bog standard to me. Whereas if you look at the Venerable Dreadnought, you look at the Ironclad Dreadnought, those to me feel far more unique. And original might be a dangerous word, especially with 40k, but more original than not. I was definitely more original to 40k than the Brutalists or the Redemptor. Like, I'm sorry, I really hate what they did to the box dreads. Not as much as I hate, like, I will say as much, equal to. I hate what they did with that, and I also passionately hate that they retired the Firstborn Marines. Like, we always knew that they were gonna do that, but, and I wasn't surprised when it finally happened. I was surprised it all happened at once, pretty much. Like, we went from, like, 3 months prior, Sternguard veterans being retired and the Dreadnoughts. And then before that, we had like none of the Firstborn kits being retired at all for years after Primaris was introduced. So for years, they just held on to them, continued to develop them, continued to sell them. Then out of nowhere, boom, we're no longer having Sternguards, and box dreads are going the way of the dodo. Okay, then fast forward 3 months, boom, pretty much every other Firstborn kit instantaneously gone as well. Like, in 2, like, years, nothing. Like, they didn't retire anything. Then all of a sudden, you're retired and annihilated. You're retired and annihilated. Bye. And it's just like, what the fuck? Like, it all happened, like, very suddenly. So. Definitely not a fan of that move. Mark IV Venerable Dreadnought. That's a good one. At this point, the Armored Core 5 ACs look more like Dreadnoughts than those. I don't think that's an unfair statement, yeah. The Box Dread was the design that after the Rogue Trader era design. Or was the design after the Rogue era trader, yeah. I just, again, I really liked the Box Dreads. And I just, for me, I don't understand why anybody is a fan of the Brutalist. I don't understand why anybody's a fan of the Redemptor. I just don't like them. I've never wanted to collect them. Like I listen, this is not just me like being extra mad or making statements like harshly after the cancellation of Box Dreads and I'm just a little sore. No, before that even, I had no interest in the Brutalist or the Redemptor. I just don't know why people like them. Like I don't know, like what do people see in those designs that's so cool? There's so much more bog standard. Like there's so much more generic. And they feel so much less unique. I'm not sure what the draw is. Like with a Leviathan, those are different from the Box Dreads, but they still have the core foundational design. You can still see where the box was on the Leviathan, where it would have been, and where it would be the logical evolution onto that. It still has a boxy vibe to it. It still feels unique to 40k. Like I like the Leviathans, but I still think the more bog standard Dreadnoughts look cooler than the Leviathan. As awesome as Leviathan is, I still think it's not as cool as like the Venerable or the Ironclad. I think those look better even than the Leviathan. So I don't understand why anybody is a fan of those two. It's just, it makes me like raise an eyebrow. It's like, why? Why do you think those are so good looking or cool? And definitely, why would you want those over a Box Dread? Other than stats, like if they weren't meta to use in like games, what's the draw? Like, what about them just screams, yes, that I have to field that? For me, nothing. But I guess for plenty of people, enough that GW felt safe retiring the Box Dreads. Apparently plenty of them were like, yeah, totally. Let's nuke some classic 40k designs. I don't want to sound demoralizing. It is a sad series of events lately with them doing that shit. They look like Imperial Tau mechs. They really do. That's actually a very good point. They look like Tau mechs. Like with the smooth, like with the amount of armor plating and how smooth it is. Like it feels more advanced sci-fi than the Box Dreads ever looked, which is a problem. Like the Imperium shouldn't. That's a huge problem with like 40k over the last few years in general. I guess is that we're losing a lot of that grimdark, grungy identity more and more. And I know we all know GW are doing it on purpose. Like they're trying to make the hobby more quote-unquote family friendly. Because in their mind, like that's the reason things aren't selling. That's the reason they're not making bank. It's like, oh, it's not because the prices are fucking ridiculous. It's not because we're upselling the hell out of certain countries. It's not because of this, that, the other. No. It's clearly because we have a lack of exposure, and it's clearly because it's not family friendly. That's why it's not selling. No, it would sell like hotcakes. It would sell like hotcakes if you just did one thing. You know what that magical thing is, GW? Lower the goddamn prices. Not increase them. Like, lower them. If I can go to a meeting with GW and they're like, you mean increase the prices? No. Decrease the prices. See how this is $140? Decrease to $120. Give a higher number, please. 150? Okay, what were you saying? I'm saying we should decrease the prices. You know, that's what it feels like the meetings would be at GW if someone dared to fucking say, hey, let's decrease the prices to something that is more manageable. That it's like, hey, you'd make more money, believe it or not, if you were, because you'd be able to sell more kits. With the prices they're at right now, people have to save for a year just to be able to afford a single box set. Or again, you're driving people to 3D print more and more. It's like, okay, hey, whereas before, like just rewind a couple years ago, not even that many, just a couple years ago, when 3D printing was only just starting to hit the market for the community and stuff like that as an option. Like back then, a lot of people said, "No, it looks too complicated," and after you buy everything, it's actually pretty expensive up front. It's a huge investment, and plus it's complicated to learn. Well, not only has 3D printing gotten a fucking lot easier over the years, but now it's way fucking cheaper. You can get a 3D printer for a resin 3D printer, a high quality detailed model one, for like $150, if not less. $150 USD, and you can find a very decent 3D printer. That's less than what the combat patrols cost baseline here in the United States. So for the cost of a single combat patrol, you can get a 3D printer. And ironically, I think if you can get normal resin for that 3D printer, even cheaper. Well, not even cheaper. You can get the resin, a bottle of resin for that printer that you'd get, and still be within budget for just a combat patrol. So now, and also the same people who back then would have made the argument, oh, well, it's complicated to learn 3D printing. Well, not only is there more reasons to teach you how now, but also, again, price-wise, it's like, okay, yeah, it might be a little more complicated to learn, but I'd be saving hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars long term. And the more they increase the prices, the more that digit of how much they'd be saving if they got a 3D printer goes up. So they're driving people to 3D printing. And the ironic thing is it doesn't seem like they realize that's what they're doing every time they hike up the prices. They seem entirely ignorant of their own market. And that's kind of ironic. And the only way they've combated it so far is by banning 3D printed or third-party models at official tournaments. Which, I'll tell you this, at least here in the United States, a lot of tournaments aren't obeying or staying strictly to that. Like, there's actually quite a bit of deviation. Chaos Dwarf are not going to be an old world, which they brought those back, they would sell. Yeah, they would. Wait, they're not at all? Or is it just that they haven't been announced in the first wave or the second wave? I guess the first wave is just Tomb Kings and Bretonnia. But, like, or have they, as GW directly said, we're not adding Chaos Dwarves into the tabletop? Like ever. Have they made that statement? Or is it just they haven't mentioned them now, so for now, they're not being added? They have said. Oh, okay. I wonder why. That feels weird. Like, why wouldn't you add them? I can't imagine it's because the kits are super complicated. Little details. It is fun to paint chaos models. Not easy by any stretch, but it is fun. There's so many little nooks and crannies, literally. Skaven is another faction not getting supported. Really? I thought I saw a graphic where they showed the Skaven would be coming. I thought they were adding them. Well, Arch is not going old world then. Yeah, if there's no Skaven, he's not going old world. I think a lot of people would. Actually, that's the army I was most curious about. Like, I never got into Warhammer Fantasy back in the day, so I was curious to try out a Skaven army, the tabletop. If they're not bringing back the Skaven, then that's a huge amount of my hype killed. I didn't have any to begin with, really. Like, I'm still 40k focused, and I wouldn't spend my money on Warhammer Old World for a while. I wouldn't buy a single kit for years. But if I ever did get into it, my plan was probably Skaven as my first army. And if they're not adding Skaven, what the hell are they doing? Like, a huge fan, like, not just, they factor out Arch. A lot of people are fans of the Skaven. Why would you not add back in such an iconic army? Like, that feels stupid. That'd be like releasing a Star Wars game based in the original trilogy and not having a Darth Vader model. Or not having a Darth Vader thing. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, this is an iconic related visual to this space and hobby and community, and you're excluding it. Like, what drugs are you on? Do you want this to be successful and make you money, or do you want this to fail? Like, it sounds like you want it to fail. By virtue of you screwing it the fuck over. Skaven would be the last ones I'd pick? Really? I mean, I guess that kind of tracks with you, though. You find them boring, oddly enough. Really? Huh. I wonder why. For me, they're extremely unique. Like, I can't think of their equivalent in other fiction, to be honest. Ooh. Aggressive of me. Just trying to get the, you know, the bristles. That Arco you show, that is the Legends non-support. Oh! Lizardmen, Dark Elves, Skaven, Ogre Kingdoms, Vampire Counts, Demons of Chaos, and Chaos Dwarves are not getting... Oh! Okay. I didn't realize that that's what that image was showing. I thought it was showing what they were bringing in. If they're not bringing in the Lizardmen... Dark Elves, Skaven, Ogre Kingdoms, Vampire Counts, sorry, Vampire Courts, Demons of Chaos, and Chaos Dwarfs. Why? What? At that point, you might as well not do what you're doing. Like, why even make the old world now? Like, what's the point? Why even do the old world? That's so stupid. It's like there's no point in doing the old world. You've just knocked out huge, massive factions with their fan bases that would have come and gladly played in the format of old world, and now you've told them to fuck off. Like, are they is this some kind of tax write-off? Like, is this literally an attempt to intentionally fail the old world? Because that's what it comes off as to me. Like, that comes off as sabotage. Whoever decided to... Like, I can understand one or two of those in the list not being supported. But a lot of those are staples of Warhammer Fantasy. Even I know that as a non-Warhammer Fantasy fan. Like, even I know, like... Demons of Chaos, they are a staple of Warhammer across the board. They are a staple of the hobby overall. And they're not being supportive for Old World? Skaven, again, another iconic army for Warhammer Fantasy specifically. A lot of people think Warhammer, and their second thought is Skaven. Or third thought. Second or third. Like, I can understand not doing the Ogre Kingdoms. There's no way they're as popular as Skaven, Demons of Chaos, Lizardmen. Like, they're probably one of the less popular factions. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a huge fan base for them. But I can understand not doing Ogre Kingdoms. I can understand not doing Chaos Dwarves. I can. Like, just doing normal Dwarves is far more, you know, maybe they just want to focus on doing normal Dwarves for now. And Chaos Dwarves are kind of quirky, so I can understand not doing Chaos Dwarves. As long as you're just doing normal Dwarves in their place, at the very least. But not doing Vampire Courts? Not doing Lizardmen, Dark Elves, Skaven, Demons of Chaos? Like, these are extremely unique, potent, and notable armies for Warhammer Fantasy that you're excluding. That's incredibly dumb. Like, why even bother at that point? Like, that just feels like you're wasting everyone's time and effort. Like, you're not just your own, not just your teams of designers and writers and illustrators and God knows what else they put for resources into Old World. You've wasted all of their time. You've wasted your own money paying them for their time. You've wasted the fan base's time because they were invested in and excited for Old World to come back. You've wasted not time and money in countless amounts, as well as hope. Quite a bit of people's hope for Old World coming back. For what? Like, there's no gain here, only loss. That's why I asked myself when they announced Old World, like, is a time before any faction was a thing. It's 500 years before any faction was a thing. Well, again, like, they don't have to be a thing in the lore for them to be added to the game. Like that again feels like a cheap explanation for why a bunch of things are not in the active game. Like, personally, when it comes to the actual tabletop side of it, I don't think it needs to mirror the lore 100%. Like, the stories and stuff you can write around Old World might be focused with before a lot of those factions existed or before a lot of those factions were active in the setting. But on the tabletop, there's no reason you should not have Skaven. There's no reason you should not have Chaos Dwarves. There's no reason you should not have Demons of Chaos. There's like am I crazy for saying that it's okay to have things and resources and stuff for the tabletop that doesn't necessarily align with the lore you're writing for it? It's one, and keep in mind, it's one thing to go against canon for lore, like say like, hey, these things never will exist and never existed, you know, back in that time. But it's entirely another thing to be adding like female space marines and stuff to the tabletop, and then going like that's entirely different. Like, with this though, these are things that do exist in the Warhammer Fantasy lore. Granted, after the timeline that this game is taking place, but they're canon to the universe. They are accepted by the community. They are loved factions from Warhammer Fantasy battles. So there's precedent for them being supported in the tabletop. I think it's a cheap excuse to not include them, saying, well, the lore of Old World takes place before everything else. Like, okay, fine. But let's be honest, meta-wise, Old World is coming back to facilitate old traditional fans of fantasy. Why not give them the support for the factions and armies that they want? You can have your cake and eat it too. Like, you can have, again, the cheap excuse of Old World, because again, they don't want to bring back fantasy as it was and as it was standing back then, because for some reason they think it's like an insult to them and an admittance of guilt or a mistake if they do that. It's like, oh, if we bring back Warhammer Fantasy Battles and call it that and treat it as Warhammer Fantasy Battles, then we basically admit that we fucked up with End Times, and we can't admit that we fucked up with End Times because that'll hurt our ego. that'll make us look bad. So you do all of this shit. You go out of your way to do a pretzel logic and say, oh well, it's not Warhammer Fantasy Battles, it's Warhammer Old World. It's entirely different. But the meta reason for Old World existing is because the traditional fans of fantasy wanted to play Warhammer Fantasy again and don't want to play Age of Sigmar. It's the whole reason Old World is coming back. So again, it's a cheap fucking excuse to not support massive swaths of armies and kits and models that you would have sold like hotcakes if you were supporting them. To then say, no, we're not doing this, period. And then basically say, okay, well, we're, by virtue of doing that, saying, okay, well, we're not bringing back the game that you love. And therefore, the meta reason that Old World exists is now null and void. You've now wasted everyone's fucking time. Like, they've literally wasted everyone's fucking time. So stupid. They're mostly metal model. I was already aware of that. I'm not. I laugh at that a little bit because it's like, okay, they're clearly just have a backlog or stock or something of all these models, so they're kind of just throwing them into kits and stuff. And that's another reason they're releasing Old World, is no doubt they had a backlog of stuff that they're now trying to empty out. At this point, just call it a reboot. Yeah, that would have been way wiser. But again, they just, for some reason, don't want to admit that they fucked up with end times. It's an ego and arrogance thing to me. Like, that's how I interpret all that. Like, all of that is an ego and an arrogance thing. Like they cannot admit that the reason Old World is being brought back is because they fucked up with Age of Sigmar. And they fucked up with the end times. They don't want to admit that. That's how I interpret it. It's entirely an ego shift. It's not a backlog. They are bringing out the old dies. What? Can you repeat that, but a little bit more clear? Because I have no idea what you just said. It's not a backlog. They are bringing out the old dies. What? It stopped making sense after backlog. It's not a backlog, got that. They are bringing out the old dies. Old dies? Who died? Who's dead? What? For casting the models, they are bringing out of storage the dies for casting they bring back. Okay, that's a little bit more clear. Okay, so you mean like they're redoing the casting? Well, that still doesn't make sense why they wouldn't just do the molds in plastic. Like, why go to the trouble of making them metal again? Like, I understand that they're bringing back the old molds and they're just redoing the same processes they did back in the day, but by all accounts, they should still be able to make a mold or use the molds and then use plastic. They're not making new molds. Well, again, you don't have to. You can use the old mold and then use plastic injection molding. It's not the exact same, but it's a fairly identical process to metal molding. Like, in both cases, you take the material that is being filled into the mold, you melt it down to a liquid, it fills into the mold, and then you mesh the mold together, then you let the substance, whether it's metal or plastic or pewter or whatever the fuck it is, and you let that, solidify, and then you break open the mold, and then boom, you have the model kit. For me, I don't understand why they're going to all the trouble of casting down metal and melting that down and putting that in the molds, when in my mind, like, when you just do the exact same process but now use your plastic injection molding machines, why do metal? I mean, maybe I'm grossly ignorant of the process here, but I've molded stuff in my life before. I've used molds and then different materials into the mold. Like, I've used liquid metal, I've used liquid plastic. I've done that before in my life. Granted, not on an industrial scale, but I've done that. So for me, in my head, I'm trying to think of a reason why they can't use the mold for a metal cast and not use that for a plastic cast. Both of them melt, both of them will fill into the mold, and both of them will solidify. Maybe it's the machine they're using, maybe it's purely only designed for one particular... Again, I don't understand the logic, though. Would have been cheaper for metal molding. That would be my thought process. It's like what little adjustments do you need to make for this mold so plastic will work as opposed to metal? Like, in my mind, wouldn't that be smarter to make those adjustments than to continue? I say continue to go back to using metal, liquid metal, and doing that. To me, in my mind, like, the amount you are expending now to get the metal material to melt down and then use in the molds is going to be way more costly long term than the short term cost to shift the processes to then use plastic injection molding with the same fucking molds. They still have the master molds, but they are going lazy and just bringing out the old dyes they have long since paid for themselves. For metal are rubber dyes, whereas plastic are metal dyes. Again, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, then shift the dye. Like, is that impossible? I don't think that's impossible. I would kill to be inside their, like, the actual workshop for Games Workshop. Like, I would love to be in there and be a fly on the wall, because I have so many questions. It's like, what about, like, I get what you're saying about the dyes, but in my mind, like, I don't, like, you're saying it like this is impossible to change. I don't think it is. Like, I think you can change it. They would have to make a new dye for it. But yeah, wouldn't that be cheaper long term to do than not doing and continue to use metal, which will cost more? Like, metal as a material is not cheap. It's more expensive than plastic. Like, fundamentally. So, wouldn't it be cheaper to get a new dye? Which, by the way, you're spelling dye like death. I'm assuming you mean dye like D-Y-E, like color dye. Or if you mean, like, I guess the other dye would be like a rollable dye. There's that. But either way. Yeah, okay, you mean D-Y-E. Okay. Again, in my mind, it's cheaper to get a new dye. Like, maybe, like, to be fair, maybe it's up front a bit expensive. But I feel like if you want this to be a successful product in the modern day where people are used to plastic molds, and you have traditionally thrown out metal molds, they've gone the way of the dodo, or supposedly did. Going back to metal mold, like, I get the nostalgia process, but I don't think that many people were nostalgic for the material. Like, again, cost a lot, 10,000 or more easily. Yeah, but again, like, think about how much units of metal they're buying to melt down and fill in the molds. Again, like, you say that number like it's this impressive number, but $10,000 for a dye change. Okay, how much do they save on the metal that they're buying? Like, how much does that cost versus plastic? Now, granted, I don't know the cost. Maybe they wouldn't be saving that much if they changed the dye, and maybe it's not worth doing. In my mind, though, like if they want this to be long term and they're going to be printing like thousands and thousands of sprues to put into model kits and to sell, maybe hopefully one day 1 million if it's a really successful product. Like, here's the thing, I want it to be successful, but by the sounds of it, they're doing everything in their power to not make it successful. I would think that that $10,000 would be a paltry amount compared to what they stand to make if they were to just change the dye and make it a plastic material, because you'd save so much on now using plastic as opposed to metal. Metal is extremely expensive as a material. A lot more expensive than plastic. So I don't think that $10,000 is a fair excuse. It's not enough in my mind. Now, granted, maybe if the prices for the plastic that or versus metal material that they're getting is not that big, maybe the metal material in bulk is like, let's say, per unit. And I'm not gonna throw a number out there of like how, like in barrels or in fucking boxes, whatever the hell. But in raw units, let's say a unit of metal versus a unit of plastic. Like a unit of metal is $500 for like a unit. Insert whatever like container size weight you want. But let's say an equal unit of metal is $500 versus plastic, which is $150 to $200. I feel like if you spent that $10,000, got the new dye, and then used plastic, which is far more attractive to modern tabletop gamers than going back to using metal, because metal is really only nostalgic to the old crowd. If you're my age or younger, you don't give a damn about the model being metal. Like, you would prefer it to be plastic, if anything. I just don't see the logic. Like for me, long term, they're costing themselves more money not spending that $10,000 for a new dye. Then again, this is all assuming that this is going to be successful at all, which it's not. Like, all of this is kind of a moot point next to the fact that a bunch of model ranges and armies are not viable for Old World. Like, as we just went over, Skaven, Dark Elves, Demons of Chaos, like, all of these things are not, all that, they're not going to make that much money at all anyway, so that might also be the reason but even then, like, you're still buying the metal for this. Again, it all comes down to they're wasting time. They're wasting time, effort, and money so fucking bad. Ooh. Depending on how much they buying metal in bulk is cheaper than industrial plastic molds, but plastic is cheaper if you buy raw in bulk. Yeah, again, like there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before we can say if it's definitively cheaper for metal versus plastic. But in my based on my knowledge of metal that I've had to buy in bulk versus plastic beads and stuff that you melt down for plastic injection molding. Again, in a non-industrial setting, just in like a hobby setting, I saved way more money getting plastic melt beads. Like they come in like the barrels and shit. You can get it like small ones, but like the industrial ones are like these big fucking barrels full of these little beads that you kind of like feed into a machine and they melt down, and that's how plastic injection molding is done. But with like at home stuff, they give you like a little one, and then you have like a little mini machine. There's a lot of hands-on parts of it. It's basically like a hot glue gun, and you fill that into a mold, and then yeah. So I've had the hobbyist version of that process, and at least in that form, it was way cheaper to get the little plastic beads that you melt down versus the little metal. I call them little ingots, but you got these little metal things like similar to the beads. You kind of feed them into a machine and they melt down. Like it's like comparatively for like what I bought a couple of years ago, the plastic was like a third the price of the metals that I got. So for me, I can't imagine that in bulk that shifts too much. Like I feel like it'd still be twice as expensive to continue using metal as opposed to plastic. And again, a lot of people prefer plastic, so some people will even not get a kit because it's metal, because they don't want to deal with metal material. So bad. Okay. Back when no. Yeah, Finecast resin, they use the metal dyes, which is why the Finecast was so bad. Yeah. So bad. And you say was. They're still pretty bad. I don't think they must not have switched to dye on that one either, because they're still bad. Which was why the Finecast was so bad. It was the wrong dye for it. Okay. That's fair, I guess. But again, like, I still, like, that, as you just admitted, that's part of the problem is because they didn't switch the dye. I'm not saying they don't switch the dye. I'm saying spend the $10,000 to switch the dye, to use the appropriate one for plastic. I think that's cheaper. But again, like, this Old World is not going to survive long term. We pretty much established that, but not because of all this conversation about materials. I think if everything else had been good, then this conversation would be more relevant. But to be honest, the real thing that's going to kill Old World is the fact that massive swaths of armies that people would have wanted to collect and would have wanted to play are not being supported. Like, I'm sorry, the moment they said Skaven, Chaos, and Dark Elves weren't being supported, you pretty much might as well have just said, what's the point? Like, what's the point of that at that juncture? No one's gonna play. Like, Old World's gonna die. I think it was generous what we said earlier, where it might do as well as Horus Heresy. I don't even think it's gonna do as good as Horus Heresy. I think it's gonna die very quick. Solely because they're not supporting massive armies that people would have wanted to collect. They shot themselves in the foot. That for me was a bit of a revelation during this stream. It's like, wow. Like, they straight up said, we're not supporting Demons of Chaos. Really? You're not supporting Demons of Chaos. You're not supporting Skaven. You're not supporting Dark Elves. You're not supporting staples of Warhammer Fantasy. And a lot of people are going to Old World because they wanted to play Fantasy again. Like, how many fans of Bretonnia really are there? I'm sure there's plenty, but is there enough of them to make up the difference of losing all the Skaven fans? Is it enough of a difference to make up for all the fans of the Chaos Dwarves, of the Dark Elves? Like, really, is it going to make up the difference that much? Tomb Kings as well? Like, is the fans of Tomb Kings going to make up the difference? No. Like, there's not enough fans of, or major fans of Tomb Kings and Bretonians to make up for the loss of all the Skaven fans, Dark Elf fans. Like, they've killed Old World. Fundamentally, they've killed it. And in my opinion, they've killed it due to ego and arrogance. It's because they didn't want to set Old World into the into where they left off with Fantasy, because they didn't want to admit they fucked up with Age of Sigmar and the End Times. They didn't want to admit that. So rather than admit that and just reboot back to the setting that everyone liked, they do this hubris thing and said, oh, we're doing Old World, which says set even further back. And then use that as an excuse not to facilitate and support countless armies that people would have wanted to play. That's just stupid. That is just stupid. But I'm not an executive at GW, so it doesn't hurt my pocket money. But by God, did they just waste a lot of time of development? And the worst part is we all know that they're not going to blame the correct things when this fails. Like, when Old World fails, they're going to chalk it down to, oh, no one's really a fan of that old stuff. We should have never wasted our time. No. People are massive fans of that old stuff. That's the whole reason that what you did sent so many of them packing. Because that stuff that they were a fan of, that you implied you were bringing back with Old World, you weren't bringing back. It's just stupid. But, again, it's not my loss. It's GW's. They fucked themselves on that one. Look on the bright side, the vacuum GW created can be filled with Warglaive. It could be, yeah, for sure.
Not at the moment right now. I haven't had time to really work on it in a while. It has been on the back burner for a long time. That's the downside with having my day job and also still trying to maintain my YouTube channels. Is I haven't had a lot of time to work on it. But I'm hoping to change that at some point. At this point, I'm also trying to save money on the side, and if I can get enough, I can hire people to start doing stuff for me that I now no longer have the time to do because of work. But, yeah. Trying to make up the difference of things. I'm still the only one working on it, too, so... One-man show makes it a really slow show. It will get done someday. It's gonna be a long haul. Speaking of, the artist I hired for a lot of my concept arts and stuff, he's almost available again. He's got a huge backlog of work, but it's Pierce, by the way. He was here early in the chat, but he's got a huge backlog of work. But I'm close to next in the line on his commission sheet, so hopefully once that gets back and I can commission him for the next piece of artwork. I'm also then going to save up some more and hopefully hire a 3D artist to start doing some of the models that I, again, don't have time to do at the moment. I feel like an old man when I say stuff like this. It's like, oh, I just don't have time because of work and all this stuff. Like, Jesus. How old am I? 50? But I am thankfully still working on the books at the moment, which is kind of gratifying. Crap, I keep nicking the skin areas. I don't nick those. One thing I definitely plan on doing is a Kickstarter or a similar thing. Because the real big barrier right now, other than available time to get Warglaive done, is finances. Because I need to cover a lot of expenses for it, and the big things are got to get artwork for everything. I need to pay myself and cover my own expenses. So I have the time to do all the 3D sculpting for molds and also mostly it's a finance break at the moment. It is not cheap to develop a game, even if it's not a video game. I will say this, it's a lot cheaper to do what I'm doing right now than it is to develop a video game. A video game, oof, like you need to hire programmers, you need to hire 2D artists, 3D artists, you need to hire testers. Thankfully, I don't think I'll need to do that for Warglaive. Like, first of all, I could test it myself and play the tabletop, and if it's a smooth ride, it's fun to play, it should be fine. And to also remove my biases, I can always ask anyone on the Discord community to try it out once the prototype's ready to go. So, yeah, still need to, you know, get 2D art and stuff. Still gotta, oh man. So it's a long road. It's a long road. I'm only gonna put up a Kickstarter or something equivalent once I actually have. Like that's the thing. I detest Kickstarters that are done by people who don't have anything yet. It's pure concept. Me, I want to have some stuff. Like I want to have the bare bones of the game outlined. I want to have at least a dozen plus STLs ready to go, for people to download and print off their own. I also want to have enough 3D printing power in my house to print off a lot of kits and stuff or bits and bobs and put them together in kits for when people, that way people who aren't fans of 3D printing can buy directly from me and I can just ship and sell stuff. But I don't have enough 3D printing power at the moment. I only have 2 printers and one of them is broken, sadly. Plus my wash and cure stations are both really shit. Like they're not curing anything right at the moment. So I'll probably have to buy, I want to say a safe number, probably early on, because I don't think we're getting a ton of sales early on. Like a lot of this is like theory crafting of like how the actual launch of the game will go. My hope is I'll have a decent demand, but assuming on the conservative side that there's not that much demand initially, 1 or 2 printers should be enough. But I'm thinking long term, like for me to like be the main support for most of it, I'll need like 5 to 6 printers going probably round the clock. Another circumvention to that, I guess, could also be though like doing a design, doing a resin print, and then making a mold of that, and then do plastic injection molding. Like after that, but then I need to get a plastic injection molding machine. And I've looked at the prices for the industrial ones of those. First of all, you need a decent amount of space for them, a lot of power. They're not cheap on the electric bill. And then of course you need the plastic beads that you buy in bulk. And yeah, like after all that, it's a fucking lot. Like if Warglaive blew up, I'd invest in all that. Like if it was just fucking like I was getting like a ton of sales, a lot of people were buying like all the army booklets and the rule books, and like things were soaring, and I was making money like really good. I would definitely invest in a workshop. I'd invest in a plastic injection machine, and I'd start selling kits. I'll tell you this, I'd still be, even after all that, I'd sell enough to make a profit. But I don't need to make like the biggest fucking profit in the world. Just enough for obviously a decent fair price for people to buy from me, and a decent amount for me to actually make some money back and then reinvest that back into continuing to develop everything. I don't know, I'm going on a bit of a tangent, sorry. It just got brought up and it's all like on my mind. So I just kind of air that out, I guess. I feel old. Because just talking about all that, I'm eager to get to those steps. That youthful part of my brain is like, oh, I want to get to like this. I want to do this. I want to do this. But then the part of me that's getting old is the part that's like practical. It's like yes, but before you get to that, you need to make sure you get this and this done. You gotta dot your I's, cross your T's. Gotta make sure that's properly punctuated. Do you have the W-2 forms? Goddamn. Well, at least your conversion rates won't be anywhere near today. For me, I'm just gonna do direct conversions of like the currencies. And like the only thing that'll shift is shipping, and it'll always reflect in like when people buy from me online, I'll show it as the shipping cost. But like the actual like cost, like if I'm charging someone $50 for like an army kit, like I said, like a whole army kit, that's a pitch. That keep in mind, that's like I don't know what the prices are gonna be. It's all gonna depending on how much I have to spend for something, and how much I think is a fair price to sell it for. But let's just say a whole army kit, like a 40 models or 45 models, is $50. If I'm able to sell it for that much, if it's $50 in USD, it's probably going to be the equivalent amount in pounds per sterling for those in the UK. It's going to be equal for UK dollars. It's going to be equal for Australian. The only thing that'll shift is the shipping cost. I don't want to upcharge people based on where they live. That sounds stupid to me. would be faster, but I don't need industrial injection machine. Exists some manual injection machines that are fairly faster than 3D machines. But the wage cost, yeah. There's lots of things to. Trust me, I've done number calculations. It's like you have the actual machines that a lot of it's automated, and you just need to like feed it and obviously do maintenance on the machine. Then there's more manual methods, which you have to pay for labor costs, and labor costs are certainly not cheap in their own right. I've done a lot of number crunching. I'm not going in half-cocked with this process. That's part of why I will say this. I shouldn't have announced Warglaive when I did. I should have waited until I was further down the road. But at the time, my mindset was, okay, I'm going to announce it. But then everyone's going to understand that this is a long ways away. Little did I realize that when you announce something, people have, like, in the back of their mind the expectation that, okay, you've announced it, which means it's soon to come out. Or it's almost done. Like, that's what people assume when you announce something. For me, I was just announcing a project. Like, it's being worked on. This is something that is way early on, and I announced it also for support. I was hoping to get more backing for it on Patreon and stuff like that. And then from there, I could use those finances to really start ramping up development. Hire some people on to do 3D modeling and sculpting where I couldn't. Or to do it faster than me, because admittedly I'm not very fast with it. I think I'm good quality, but I don't think I'm good speed. Like, I'm not very fast. So, I was hoping for that to happen, but the result was more so... Like, what came of the announcement was mostly a lot of assumption that it was further along than it was. A lot of people misunderstanding things. And for support... Now, keep in mind, this is not being negative or anything. This is just the reality of it. But support-wise, there wasn't much of an influx of support, like financially speaking. There was lots of moral support, which is not to be discounted. Like, I was excited to see so many people interested in Warglaive, and I'm excited to continue working on it. Through that, I'm happy people are eager for it, and I'm happy to be working on it. And the day it's finally finished is a very proud day for me. Even if it doesn't launch necessarily to the response that I may want, but just getting it done from where I'm standing is going to be a huge accomplishment. I'll be extremely proud of myself. And whoever I bring on the team towards the end. Yeah, you always announce when you have a working prototype. Yeah, and I didn't. That was a mistake. I should have pushed back the announcement, but again, the mindset at the time was I was hoping to get some support so I would have a prototype, but that didn't happen. Again, hindsight is a beautiful thing, but it's 2020. Regardless, it's still being worked on. It's just a very slow process, and at this point, most of the capital for it is being garnered by me from work, and a lot of that money obviously is going to maintain living at the moment. Like, a lot of it's going towards rent, a lot of it's going towards food, basic necessities. Yeah, so it's even slower than it should be at the moment. But that's the way of things. It's a process, and it's being worked on. At the very least, it's not dead. It's just very slow. Ooh. Anyway, that's enough about that for right now. Okay, what do I got left? Oops. I just bumped my glasses. So other than Old World, Is there any 40k like news I've missed? Maybe. Everything I've been hearing lately is old world, old world, old world. I wonder if there's any 40k news I missed. Don't know if you guys got anything. Has anything notable happened yet with the Lion and Gilman? I feel like I would have heard about that if something did happen, but just in case, I'll ask. I don't think so. GW is occupied with Old World. Yeah, I figured, but I tend to miss a lot of things when I'm just slightly off. You know, off doing my own thing. And then I end up missing, like, a huge announcements. I was lucky I was catching the live announcement for the Lion. Like, that was awesome. And I was really happy with my luck when I was watching that Warhammer Fest. And they announced it. Like, obviously, like, we all knew before that. Because that same day, they released, like, the least subtle hints you could possibly put. Like, they might as well have made the announcement in the hint videos that they made before that night's Warhammer Fest. They straight up basically said that, oh yeah, you like lions? It's like, would you just say it? Like, when you're that obvious, like, the only people who don't get what you're saying right now aren't fans. Like, straight up. But regardless, live, I checked out that Warhammer Fest, and when they're like, here's a lion, they showed his model, they showed all the stuff. Oh, that was pretty hype. I will say, I was immediately like, okay, but how are they going to handle this lore-wise? And I was also a little perturbed by how old he looked. I was like, hold on, what? Why'd he age so much? And I still stand by my points about that. It's like, yeah, people, the excuse is, oh, well, Gilliman was in stasis, whereas the Lion wasn't. It's like, okay, yeah, but that he's still a Primarch. Like, Primarchs should not be aging that much. I'm not saying they should be immortal, but keep in mind the Custodes barely fucking age. And even basic Space Marines, like, for example, Sigismund lived to be over 1,000 years old. And he wasn't that physically frail. Like, he was frail for an Astartes. Like, a young Astartes had, by all basic advantages, over Sigismund when he faced off with Abaddon. But Sigismund closed that physical gap with experience and like his strategy in battle. Like, he knew how to close the gap that had been created over the years of... And plus not all of it was age. Like, a huge bit of what slowed Sigismund down against Abaddon was also his old injuries. Like Space Marines heal, like, impressively, but he was still scarred. He was a still scarred veteran of many wars, to the point even Space Marines can't heal entirely from. So, despite that, though, he lived to be over 1,000, and by all accounts, if Abaddon had not killed him, Sigismund could have lived to be way older. And a lot of Astartes have... Problem is, we've never seen an Astartes' life conclude. So we have no idea how old they can live to be. We know they show their age significantly, or at least notably, by the time they hit 1,000 years old. But even then, they're still far more physically fit, powerful, and deadly than any human being could be. So you're telling me 1,000 years is just enough for a Space Marine to start showing their age, but a Primarch after only, what, not even 10,000 years, not even, again, only after like 5 millennia, give or take. You're telling me he goes from looking like a young, like, princely man to looking like Tywin Lannister. Like, he went from looking like a 28-year-old at the oldest, badass, like, knight type figure, kind of like a Liam Hemsworth, I think is the actor's name, kind of like that, but with a much more luscious beard, to looking like he's 80 or 70 years old. I raise an eyebrow. I'm like, no, I don't buy that. Primarchs should not be aging that poorly. People will be like, well, that's still like 5,000, 6,000 years. That's not poorly. Yes, it is. For what Space Marines, which actually start out as human beings, can last physically and be maintained for. A Primarch doesn't even start out as a human. They were made in a lab. In fucking tubes. And they're slightly watered down versions of the Emperor. The Emperor lived hundreds of thousands of years, supposedly. And he's barely aged a day. 100,000, that might be ridiculous. But he's easily like 30,000 plus years old. Like, that's part of the theory. Is like he was the son of the first murderer or something like that. Like, there's a whole bunch of theories of where it came from. But let's be conservative and say he's only 30,000 years old. He's still 30,000, and he barely looks that. The Emperor did before he got entombed. He was always portrayed as looking quite young. So you're telling me that the Primarchs, which are derived from that, it takes them only 6,000 years to start looking like geriatrics? So yeah, suffice to say, I don't agree with the design choice to make the lion look that old. I don't agree. But not like I have a say. Due to lack of time, lack of nourishment. After all, when was the last time he ate something? I mean, I could buy that more than anything. Like a lack of nourishment, a lack of, movement, a lack of, care to his physical being. If they come out and say that that's the reason he aged so poorly, I could buy that. Like, he's basically like he was a recluse or a shut-in. Like, that causes you to, your body to frail. I can accept that. I can't accept the excuse it's actually the course of time that was what caused it. And I'm pretty sure that's what they said was the reason. Is that, because I'm pretty sure it was GW themselves who were also saying he wasn't in stasis and Gilliman was. I don't buy it. It's like, okay, he wasn't in stasis, yeah, but he's still a Primarch. He shouldn't have aged that poorly. But I'm very technical, and I'm also very anal about very small things most of the time. And overall, like, when I think about it, for like the rule of cool, I do like that he looks like Tywin Lannister. I do. I do like that. I was a fan of Game of Thrones back when it was good. I really like that look of him, and that is what I pictured the lion to look like at that age. So, I do like that he looks like that. It's just I don't like the reasons, and I don't like that he looks like that, in my opinion, so early in what would have been his lifespan. It just doesn't make sense to me. But some slight adjustments, and that's all they would need to do. Some slight adjustments or some basic explanations outside of, it was just how much time it took, would be good to have. Like, again, the not very much nourishment explanation. I can buy that. Yeah, that could severely affect one's physical health. And that can make people look like they've aged substantially more than they have. But the only excuse I've heard generally is, he wasn't in stasis, therefore implying it was just the course of time that caused him to age so much. Short end of the stick of the Emperor gene pool. That could be true. It just might age poorly. But again, like, they need to explain that. Like, they need to say, like, this is the reason that he looks so old. I gladly will believe that. Like, again, all they have to do is literally, all GW would have to do is literally saying it. They don't need to release a book. Just say in a tweet, oh yeah, the lion looks old because bad nourishment, or he just isn't lucky with the gene pool. Well, and he really wears his age where he isn't actually that old in the inside. It's like, okay, fine. I will literally buy that. I'm fine with that. I just need a basic explanation of why he went from Liam Hemsworth or Liam or Chris Hemsworth, whichever one's the fucking Thor actor, with like a luscious beard, to Tywin Lannister. Like I need a throw that makes sense with the lore, and hopefully we get that. But yeah, as far as I know, they've only implied it is just the passage of time. Pretty good progress. Bad boy is definitely almost done. And again, he's already tournament legal, as you would say. Everything I'm doing out of it is just purely aesthetic. Oh fuck! I nicked the skin again. Should you tweet? Yeah, yes. Ask this question, please. Please. Tell me the answer you get back. It better fucking be. Oh yeah, bad nourishment. Or he just ages poorly. Anything literally other than, stasis. He wasn't in stasis. He's therefore just the passage of time didn't agree with him. Anything is better than that. Or is that probably a dangerous slope to say anything. Most things are better than that. Almost. nicked more of the skin during that process than I would have liked, but some minor niches here and there I can fix. Nothing really. So, GW said back in May, the 23rd of May, that the factions that won't be supported are listed. Okay. The factions that won't be supported are all the ones I'm mentioning. Yeah, like I said, that's pretty much fucked it. Like, the old world's screwed. Like, unless they introduce some really crazy, unique ones of their own out of nowhere, which is pretty much their only chance at this point to draw in an audience, old world's dead. Like, so few people are going to come in just for Bretonnia and Tomb Kings. And who's left after that? Like Reichland, I guess. Maybe. Other variations of Tomb Kings I'm not thinking of. Maybe. Dwarves? High Elves? You know? Orcs? Or they didn't list orcs as far as I know. So that means they could support orcs. A lot of those will be available, but that's it. Like, where do you go from there? Nowhere. It's a lot less armies than you should have and could have, by all accounts. Alright, here are the factions that they will support. Okay. Bretonnia, Empire of Man, so Reichland. Dwarven, Mountain Holds. Okay, makes sense. High Elves, figures. Wood Elves. Alright. Tomb Kings, Warriors of Chaos. Whoa! We have Warriors of Chaos, but not Demons of Chaos. What? Beastmen, Bray Herds. Okay, that could definitely be good. And Orc and Goblin Tribes. Alright, so there's still a chunk there that will draw in an audience, but I think they're still losing quite a bit. And again, like the Warrior of Chaos, you have Warriors of Chaos, but not Demons of Chaos. That makes no fucking sense. Yep, dumb. What are they thinking? Like, seriously, who is it? I don't fucking know. What am I saying? It's GW. Nothing they do makes sense. Hasn't for years. Ugh. It's so frustrating being a fan of 40K. Not because 40K itself is frustrating, it's because the people who fucking make it are. They have always been such shit, but I can't believe they continue to... It boggles my mind sometimes. It's just like, how? How did you ever be successful with how shit you guys are? I genuinely want to ask that some days from GW. It's like, how did you guys get where you are now, being as incompetent and asshole-ish as you are? Yeah, I feel like there's some kind of cosmic fuck-up somewhere where you guys got that much raw luck. I genuinely am in my head racking my brain trying to think how in any way is Old World going to be successful with all like this shit working against them effectively. Like, no Skaven, no Chaos Demons, no Dark Elves, but you'll have High Elves and Wood Elves and Warriors of Chaos. You'll have all these other things. The thing is, shouldn't Dark Elves exist by the time of Old World? I would think. Granted, I don't know fantasy lore, so maybe I'm fucking way off. Maybe the Dark Elves are like really young by comparison. But I always thought like they were similar in age. Like, Dark Elves have existed to a similar degree of a time as the High Elves. That was like my thought process, but I guess maybe I'm wrong. Oh, don't vomit on the floor. Oh. Hope you guys can't hear that. bad snack. Do you have to do it down here, really? One of the old rules writers works for bolt action. Okay. Does bolt action play like Warhammer Fantasy Battles? I didn't think so. I always figured it played more like 40k. Kind of an interesting career shift, though. Going from like a really outlandish game set to historical based. Well, I guess that's actually, if anything, that's actually kind of a natural furrow through. It's cleaning up my fuck ups. Oh, it's one of the 40k rule rights. Okay, so that, yeah, okay, again, that's a bit of a natural follow through, I would think. Well, my dog's just pestering me for a walk and stop raining, so I might miss the end of the stream. If so, I'll say good stream. Glad I was able to catch live. And I'm glad you were able to catch live. It was good conversations with you. Good Bants. Now, hope your dog enjoys the walk. Just about 1 a.m. for me here. I guess I should get some sleep. Alright, so I guess I'll call it there. I mean, I guess didn't finish the Maulerfiend necessarily like I wanted, but he's pretty much done. I mean, the only things left on the Maulerfiend is to glue him to the base, do the tendrils, and then do the coat I wanted to do on the... Actually, at this point, I might just do Runelord Brass patch right there, and then do it over with Reichland, and otherwise leave it the same. And obviously I had the Blood for the Blood God effect. So there's like 3 steps left, generally speaking. But I was pretty much done. So, next time I stream miniature painting, you guys will probably see me working on my Chaos Terminators. And I will show this off once it's done on Twitter and probably in the community page on the YouTube channel, as well as on the Discord. Like I'll share it where I can, where I can. But it's pretty much done. Like, you know, there's only some minor steps left. Hope you guys have enjoyed seeing me work on the Maulerfiend. I hope you guys like what I've done with the guy. I think I did a pretty good job. Yeah. And also I hope you guys checked out the, in unrelated news, checked out the Black Templar lore video. I put a lot
work into it, a lot of hours of research and editing, and hopefully it shows through. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Make sure to leave a like on the stream before you guys head out. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Do all kinds of 40k stuff, including these painting streams, and of course I always like to do lore videos. So I got lots, and hopefully you guys are interested. So anyway, I'm gonna head out, guys. Actually, I kind of feel my throat tightening up, so I might have been about to lose my voice anyway. But I'll catch you guys later. Hope you guys have a great night, and yeah, have a good one. Bye bye.